Welcome back to another edition of the Rodcast. We like to call it a Monday Fun Day edition of the Rodcast. That's unless you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. If you're a Longhorn fan, though, we'll of course get to the Longhorns and their number one ranking in the country and their Old Testament, old biblical style butt whipping they put on the Oklahoma Sooners. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian, the head coach, in the post game. We'll also dive into that matchup and review it from every different angle, but look ahead a little bit to a top five matchup they got this weekend with the Georgia Bulldogs. We'll also get into some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. The Texans with a big win over the New England Patriots. We'll talk about that, get into some of those details. We'll hear from Jerry Jones about the worst home loss in Jerry Jones's era as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. What are the most concerning elements of that loss? We'll talk about it. We'll also get into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets from around the NFL. But of course, we got all your usual favorites. We got Raj Rant coming up. We got Who Said That, What the Facts, What the Stats. We got also Off the Record coming up. We got the topic for the big fat poll of the day. We are loaded on a Monday as usual. But before we do any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but pretty damn sure this man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It is our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Yeah, everything seemed to be going pretty well until about 3:30 on Sunday.
Ooh, wow.
Everything seemed like it was going pretty good until about 3:30 on Sunday. Then it started to go downhill, but it was a good weekend. It was very much fun to watch Texas play again this weekend, which is always fun. And then it's a good sign when your coach walks in eating a corn dog.
That is all. Yeah, you're right. You must have done well. You ain't no way your team had a bad performance if your coach comes out eating the corn dog. I agree with that. You're right. That's a good point. I don't think I've ever seen it actually. I'm sure it's happened before.
I'm sure it's happened, but man, when I saw that clip afterwards, I was like, all right, I like this. I'm a fan of this.
Right. Yeah. Can't complain about that, man. Now you can't complain about much in that game. I mean, we'll get into it. I'm sure a lot of Longhorn fans are unsettled by Quinn Ewers' rust or his play early on, but it really didn't matter. Man, I mean, it did not matter at all. We'll talk about that defense too, because I've been reluctant to throw it out there, but I mean, you got to start calling this defense elite. I'm talking about historically elite.
Yeah,
it's about that time. I mean, that's even through 6 games. I don't know what they're going to do for the rest of the season, but they're pretty stingy. I mean, they're one of the stingiest defenses I've ever seen in my time here at Texas. I don't know if I've seen a defense stingier. On defense than this group. So we'll talk about that though.
Then we're supposed to have a cold front blowing in at some point this week too.
There you go.
Things are lining up for us to have a good old weekend here in Austin. And ACL Fest is over, but then Circuit of the Americas and then F1's coming to town. Georgia's coming to town, so it'll be another eventful week here in Austin. I'm sure of a lot of travel. Another week to stay away from the airport area. Stay away from the airport if you don't have to be over there.
Another one of them weekends. Yes, it's going to be like traffic Mageddon around
there. When we start to see a lot more helicopters. That thing when you're just like, why are there so many? Oh, it's F1. Mm-hmm. All them rich people came to town that just afford helicopter rides everywhere.
Yeah. We got a lot of rich people. Then you got more rich. You got richer.
Yeah, you got people that are like, let's just throw the helicopters out there. But,
we own one. We're gonna make sure the helicopter is there. So we need to move around. We don't like traffic. So
we want to go over to we want to get some barbecue. So time to get the helicopter.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. Different kind of money coming in town.
There you go. Let's not dally any further. Let's talk about some Texas OU. So let me introduce my co-host. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod, father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
Appreciate the intro as always. Yeah, a lot to get into in terms of this Texas-Oklahoma game. I mean, a lot of it went how we thought it would go, especially Oklahoma's offense. Kirk Herbstreit at one point just said it during the game, and I was surprised. He said it. He literally during the game he said, "Yeah, I don't know how Oklahoma's going to score in this game." And I was like, he said it. He said the quiet part out loud. And I mean, we had said it all week. It's like, I don't really know how they're going to move the football. And they moved it a little bit. I mean, but they weren't a threat at all. in that game. It did stay close because Oklahoma's defense. I still think Oklahoma's defense is pretty damn good. The dam broke on them, and we'll get into that. But that's basically what happened. The dam kind of broke on them, and they got no offensive support. And that's what we thought. We thought Texas would just overwhelm them at one point, but they ended up making a couple of plays on defense, and they made it close for the first quarter and a half. And then that second quarter happened, and we'll get to it late in the second quarter. That's when the run happened. I always talk about the run. There's always there's a Sark run at one point in the game that's going to separate you. The interesting thing about this particular run and what made it unique was that it was really more the defense that was the catalyst of it. The offense scored late in that second quarter. They did their part, but it was the defense that really sparked it with those back-to-back turnovers, those back-to-back takeaways late in the second quarter there. And that's unique. We really hadn't seen that. Usually it's a complementary element of it now when the run happens, where you get contributions, either force a 3 and out, or you get a turnover with back-to-back takeaways by the defense. That was pretty big, and the defense pretty much dominated all day long. That's why you had so much confidence. No matter how Quinn played, didn't matter. Defense and run game were going to win the game. And I got to say, that's something else I was surprised by. Going into the game, I would have told you the biggest flaw of the team would have been, I'm not sure they can go win a game with the run game. I'm not sure they can just go win a game depending, mostly on the run game to lead the way. That is what happened in this matchup. I mean, they basically won it with the run game, and it didn't even look, I think, how they initially thought. They started out with Jaden Blue, and I think they thought Jaden Blue was going to, his explosive, dynamic talent and his speed, that it may give them an advantage, but it was actually the patience and vision of Trey Wisner in the run game that really gave them the advantage. He was more compatible with the strategy that was working versus the Sooners and on defense. And I'm glad that Sark saw it and made the proper adjustment, because, and we'll get into some of the detail of it, but that was really part of what made the difference. If he had Jaden Blue in there running those same concepts, I don't know if you break them the way Trey Wisner broke them. Go back and look at him. I watched him frame for frame. It was his patience, because it initially is not there, and then he's patient enough to wait till the blocks align and then pops it at the right time. I was talking to Fozzie Whitaker and Jeremy Hills about this, and they were talking about 2008. Chris Obanaya had a big run, like a 60-yarder or something like that. I had to go back and look and see exactly how long it was. But they were talking about how, because I think Major Applewhite was the running back coach at the time, and Major basically made that was part of his coaching film going forward on how you ran that play. I believe it was like a stretch play or something, but you had to be patient. If you hit it early, you may get 3, 4, 5 yards, but you ain't going to pop it. You had to kind of wait until everything aligned and knew and be patient as a runner, and then have the vision to know, all right, this is the hole. It's going to pop. Boom, I'm gone. And every runner doesn't have that. And like I said, Jaden Blue is a damn good running back, but they're elite traits, right? Everybody's got their elite traits. His elite trait is his speed. Trey Wisner's elite trait is his vision and his patience, and it was on display. It was on display in that game, and it really did. It made a huge difference in the run game, big difference in the run game. Because you only pop 3 runs, guys over 10 yards. That's it. No, sorry, 4. There were 4 because Ryan Wingo's end around.
Yeah,
which I told you should run more of those. What do I say? Hey, you should run more of those. Keep running more of the run 1 per game. You got to run 1 per game. Yeah, because they always hit. You're averaging like 25 yards per rush on these damn things, and that's including Silas Bowden, who had a negative. I think he had a -8, like a 8-yard loss on one of them. But they pop every time with Wingo and Bond. And we'll get to Bond going down the game. But anyway, that was a big difference, because you had 3 running back runs over 10 yards. Guys, they were all the same play concept, and 2 of them were the big Wisner runs. And then, of course, there's Silas Bowden. There's Silas Bowden. What a play! It was very reminiscent of the Jordan Whittington play in the TCU game. Yeah. Remember that Jordan Whittington play versus TCU? And see, most Longhorns were like, "Oh yeah, I remember that play." You didn't even got to describe it in great detail. They know exactly the play you're talking about. For those who don't know, not unfamiliar with the play in TCU, Texas Quinn Ewers throws an interception. Jay Witt tries to tackle the defender and initially misses the tackle, but doesn't quit on the play. keeps chasing the guy down because the defender is running the interception back and then ends up catching up with him, knocking the ball loose. And then I believe Xavier Worthy ends up recovering the football. And it was a huge play. I mean, you could argue that was the difference in Texas winning that game. And it was a culture play. It wasn't showing off his, skill set, really his ability, his, speed or change of direction or, in contested catchability. No, it was just, it was testicular fortitude. It was his perseverance. It showcased his football character is what it did. And for Silas Bolden, that was a great display of football character. Coaches around the country, they'll be putting that on. They'll be putting that play on tape. I mean, like, guys, this is why you don't quit, because it was just a play where you don't loaf, right? They always say on the football field, don't loaf. They're always telling you when you go to drill, they always say, hey, guys, let's go on the hop. Oh, I can hear it in my head now. On the hop. You never walk on a football field. Like, that's the rule. You're supposed to walk on a football field. You're supposed to be running. Now, you see guys walking, but you ain't supposed to. You got your helmet on. You're supposed to be walking. You hustling, always on the hustle. And that essentially, you can tell it was programmed in him. He could have. Now he probably was going down there to celebrate too. He wanted his touchdown celebration. I get that. I want to participate, but I think it was like ingrained in him. You can tell he does that in practice. Like once it breaks, all right, I got to go down there. He was just hustling down there, and then boom. What they say? What is luck? When preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
Boom. It hit him right there in the face. He had not contributed at all so far this year, really. We had all been talking about, he's going to break through. Something's going to happen. And in the biggest game of the year so far, because they're all pretty big now, he makes the biggest play of the game. All because he was hustling.
Yeah.
Football character. That's a great play. That was the biggest play of the game. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I think that, you get amped up about that. Then he has a really good return later in the game, his best return of the season, which comes because you were in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, and it gets you pumped up and ready to go. And now everyone on that team feels better and maybe blocking even a little bit better for you coming down that field. You get pumped up and get down. It was one of those plays, as a football player, what's something that happens when you have a long run from a running back where there's guys chasing him. They're going to go for the ball and try and poke it out at the end, which happens all of the time. It's a very fumble prone play to have those kind of plays. And Silas Bolden just being heads up, watching running behind it, and then has the right track to it too, has the speed to go get there first and jump on the ball and not knock it out of the back of the end zone. Wow. How many times do we see that where there's a scrum for it and where he grabs that ball, there's not any room for error. Right. Nope. Like if he just bubbles that a little bit, that's a touchback. And going the other way.
Player hits something. You're right. I totally agree with you.
So to have all that, to have the control of the body, the speed, everything, it was such a big play because just those run of emotions of yes, watch the ball, crap. Hey,
every logo thing. You're right. You're right, because you were on the precipice of disaster there.
Yeah,
because the game was still in. It was still a fight. It was at that moment. It was still a fight, and it was. You talk about those momentum shifts. Everybody talking about, hey, those momentum shifts, man, they go back and forth. You can't allow one team to monopolize momentum, and it hadn't happened yet. No team had really snatched the momentum and had a stranglehold of it. And that's when it started to go downhill. It started to snowball a little bit for Texas. And then the defense makes a play, and I believe Trey Wisner after that has another big run, and that's when the run.
I mean, that was right?
It was still 7-3.
So it was 7-3. That makes it 14-3 with 2:21 left in the half. They go into the half up 21-3.
And that's when the run.
And then the OU fumbles the next two possessions.
Yep, that's exactly. It was really the defense that really sparked it, man.
I think it was all in that Trey Wisner breaks the run, Silas Bolden finishes the play, and now instead of your defense going back out there feeling like, okay, guys, we really got to go, it's like, no, let's pounce. So it's not so much of, hey man, just hold until the end of the half.
Yeah, you're right.
You're playing more aggressive now. You're feeling better about it. All of that starts working together. You get those two fumbles on the next couple possessions. It just, everything.
You missed that field goal too, or it would have been
24-3.
Right. You missed the field goal. That was supposed to be another score in there, so it was supposed to be more of a run. So, but you're right. It was all in that last two. Basically, you're right. The last 2.5 minutes of that. That's how those Sark runs are crazy. Like his teams now, the scary part is it doesn't just need to be the offense. that kind of spark to the run. I think the offense started, but then the defense really did. I mean, the defense was the one that kind of set it ablaze, and then the run, it like I said, that was a 2.5 minute run that should have been what 17 points, ended up being 14 points. Should have been 17 points in in the 2.5 minutes because it's very Golden State Warrior like the way it happens.
Yeah.
I mean,
And,
how about this?
And in
Texas
reality,
recorded
too, we'll say, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead. No, so okay, real quick, one sec. Texas recorded 222 yards of offense and averaged 10 yards per play during that 21-point second quarter. But it really, as we know, that was the entire second quarter, but it was really just the last 2.5 minutes when most of that offense comes into play.
No,
and that helm drive.
And what's funny is we say he missed a field goal. In reality, you get kind of a borderline holding call that Jane Blue picks up that first down. You could score another touchdown on that if we just don't get Gunnar Helm kind of a little aggressive. But I mean, it's one of those ones. I think that was one where he's had a couple of those this season where he's just bigger than the guy he's blocking, so his hands get on the outside.
Oh, yes, right.
Even though he's not holding.
Fourth down. Right, it was the fourth down.
It was a 4th and 1, and Jane Blue gets the outside, gets it. They call a hold on Gunnar. They call it back, and that's when the field goal comes. But they went for it on 4th down. Sark was trying to put foot on the throat.
Yeah.
Because he was like 28-3 at halftime.
And I agreed with that, by the way, because their offense posed no threat. So I kept saying, like, go for it on 4th down all the time. Who cares? Like, they can't, unless you're literally in your territory. If you're on their side of the field, they can't march down 30, 40 yards. They can't do it. Like, now you may be giving up a field goal potentially to them, but there was no way. I think if you wanted to pile it on, you could have. But I understand where Sark was. Your quarterback wasn't having a great game, and it was possible he could end up throwing an off throw, an errant throw, pick six, something like that, and you didn't want to risk that. So I get why sometimes he was like, you know what, I'm gonna be a little bit more conservative. And trust me, if Quinn was on, they'd have tried to score 60.
Oh yeah,
he would have. He just couldn't. Quinn was a little off, and you had to go win it in other ways, and you still won by 31 points. But you're right. That run. That's what that is part of the DNA of these Sark teams here at Texas. It's like I said, it's been happening since his first year at Texas, but now it is a more complementary element of it, and it should be scary for opposing teams. All right, I know we got to hit the horn headlines here, so let's hit the horn headlines. We'll come back, talk a little bit more Texas, Oklahoma, but first let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the horn headlines.
All right, your horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB playoffs, the Dodgers took Game 1 of the NLCS in commanding fashion with a 9-0 win over the Mets. Mookie Betts helped with the 3 RBIs, and the Dodgers pitching only allowed the Mets 3 hits and 3 walks in the game. Game 1 of the ALCS begins tonight with Alex Cobb getting the start for the Guardians against Carlos Rodon and the Yankees. In college football, Texas continued their dominant season with a 34-3 win over OU in the Red River rivalry. Quinn Ewers threw for a touchdown and ran one in, while Trey Wisner picked up 118 yards on the ground and a TD himself. Anthony Hill wrecked shop on the other side of the ball, leading Texas in tackles and adding 2 sacks and 3.5 tackles for loss. Elsewhere, Penn State needed overtime to knock off USC 33-30. Tennessee needed overtime as well to beat Florida 23-17. LSU also got an overtime win over Ole Miss 29-26. And Oregon just edged out Ohio State 32-31. Texas maintains their number 1 ranking, with Oregon taking number 2, followed by Penn State, Ohio State, and Georgia at number 5. And in the NFL, the Texans handled business in their matchup with the Patriots, winning 41-21, with a returning Joe Mixon picking up 102 yards on the ground and 2 total touchdowns. And the Cowboys never got out of the gates against the Lions, losing 47-9 in an embarrassing loss while dealing with a rash of injuries. Tonight, the Bills take on the Jets and new interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich on Monday Night Football. And that's your horn headlines.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the horn headlines. There's so many storylines about this game that I want to get to. We'll probably be reviewing it for a couple of days because there's a lot of different things that I think we need to highlight. But I do think it's time to start having a different conversation about the Texas defense. Here's a stat from John Bianco. He says that the Horns have allowed just 38 total points through the first 6 games, fewest since 1964, where they allow 30 through the first 6 games. Their defensive rankings right now, I mean, you're talking about Texas is top 5 to 8 in almost every major statistical category. And like I said, three touchdowns allowed in 6 games is extraordinary. I don't know if I've seen a stingier defense at Texas. We got to start talking about what's the last time we. Now, I'm not talking about talent wise. I know talent wise, there's some defenses I think that had more talent than this defense has overall. This defense has a lot of talent. So I'm not looking at talent wise. I'm just looking at how statistically effective they are. And man, you got to admit, it's been a long time since Texas had a D. I don't know. Like I said, long time. I just gave you the stat going back to 1964. Where you've had a defense this stingy. I will say the opponents have not presented very prolific offenses, so they have gotten a very favorable schedule. I mean, some of these offenses just are vertically challenged. Michigan, ULM, Oklahoma. You're talking about some of the worst passing offenses in college football. So basically, half of your schedule has been some of the worst passing offenses in college football, like 3 out of the 6, easily. So I mean, I understand. So with that being said, with that the context, where are we ranking this thing? Can we call them elite now? I can say they're elite, right? Without
you know what? I'm gonna
blowback?
look. I would say I'm personally gonna say I'm gonna wait one more week.
One more week. All right.
I'm
Then
gonna
I
wait
can
one
use the
more
word
week.
elite.
Because
Okay.
look, you're playing the number 5 team in the country next week.
Yeah.
You're playing probably the best passing offense. I know they're still not great, but it's the best one you're playing against. You're playing against a guy who's a first-round pick at quarterback.
That's true.
So this will be the one. If you go into Georgia and you are able to hold them, or go against Georgia and hold them, then I'll go there. But
I can say elite. Okay.
I'll go there after that game. But until then, I'll hold off solely in the fact that we have not played a real offense yet this season.
It is. No,
And they've done their job.
They have done their job.
They have done their job. There's no doubt about that. There's nothing bad I can say about this defense. But I'm going to hold off on the elite term until you go in and handle business against Georgia, and then we'll have that conversation.
It's so weird, though, because, I mean, what are the chances of them playing offenses this bad?
I know.
Right? When they are this good, though. They are really good. There's no doubt they are really freaking good, man. They got every level.
You kind of wish you had this schedule some other years.
You needed this schedule some other years. This defense could have gone up against damn near any schedule, and I still think would have been pretty good. But I don't know if we'll know how. That's the point. I don't know if we'll know how good it is, because, like you said, this will probably be the biggest test for this defense all season. And Georgia's they are not a prolific, high flying elite offense. They just have some elite pieces and elements to it.
But if you say you hold them to single digits, then you can start throwing that word around.
No, I'm gonna do it now. I'm gonna start calling they're elite. I'm gonna start calling them elite now because they're number 1 in scoring defense and number 1 in total defense. So I gotta start using that term. They are elite, but there is a but there. Then the but is half the schedule you've played offenses that struggle with the forward pass.
Yes.
And no, really, they do. They struggle. Y'all watched that. They threw one pass over 20 yards, guys. One pass. That was it. And then we remember watching Michigan Davis run. And I think at one point you see the defense, they just get more and more aggressive. And you can make a defense pay for their aggression. And these offenses can't make Texas pay at all.
No,
they don't have the ability to.
And I mean,
but Texas is really good. Like I said, they are legit. I'm calling them elite. I'm sorry.
And I'll throw this in too. Something that has changed in the defense in the last 3 or 4 weeks, probably last 3 weeks, is the sacks. That was something where, even though the Texas defense looked really good early, they weren't getting to the quarterback.
Yeah,
and so even though teams are running the ball and everything else, you're winning by 50 points and you're still not picking up, decent amount of sacks. So you go, okay, that might be a problem come down the road. Now they're starting to pick up 5-6 sacks a game.
Get it? 5 in this game, 6 in the last game. So you got 11 in the last 2 games.
So when you start to see that, that right there is a big sign of, okay, maybe now the pass rush can get home. If the pass rush can get home, now we start getting into the word elite, because now all phases are starting to click a little bit better versus if you just say, well, they're getting pressures and they're getting all that. I still can't put it there, but 11 sacks in the last 2 games. That's a really good stat.
And let's keep in mind how often these other teams are running the football.
Yeah.
You had 50 rush attempts for Mississippi State. In their last game, you had 38 rush attempts in this game for Oklahoma. So, I mean, you're talking about 88, almost 90 rushing attempts,
Mm-hmm.
and yet you're still able to get 11 sacks. So you're not getting a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
And yet you're still cashing in, and they're all coming kind of later in the game once you start to separate. So I agree with you. That should no longer be a concern for folks who were one. And I would say I'll give it props to Brian Robertson. He said that too. When I was talking to him, he's like, "No, man, they come in bunches." He said they come in bunches. He said when they come, they'll come like 5 at a time, 6 at a time, and you'll get one game, you get 1 sack or no sacks. He said that's the way sacks work. He said it's weird and I can't explain it, but damn if the man don't know what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've come in bunches for the Longhorns, and I like the opportunity. And I will say this one thing that we said, and I said they break tendency in blitz. I would blitz a young quarterback more. They did highest blitz rate for PK and Johnny Nansen. Again, they came after the young quarterback. Why not? I mean, and they can't make you pay for it. You know what I mean? Well, they don't have any weapons on the outside to make you pay for it. I mean, they're on their 6th, 7th, and 8th wide receivers. So I think that's why they were confident they could get after them. I love the double spies they had.
Yep.
And it was, that was smart because the young man was twitchy. When you saw him out there, you're like, oh, actually in space, I see why they put 2 spies on him. He could actually make one guy miss and then be off to the house. You can't even risk it. So they put 2 of them. Sometimes it was Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons. Sometimes it was Anthony Hill and Benda. Sometimes it was, LaFau and Benda. And it was different variations of guys who were going to be the spy. And sometimes they would spy from the edge and they start there. Sometimes they start mugging the B gap and then they drop out or blitz. So I like the way, Johnny Nansen and PK. I love the way that those guys, pretty much collaborated with the game plan. They got conservative in the second half, dropping their safeties back. That's why a lot of those runs that they were getting, like 6-7 yards on, it was because they dropped Taft Daddy back and went 2 deep safeties. Why not at that point? Hell, sometimes they even went 3 safeties, and why not? Because at that point, they're just going to hand out football. They can't really complete anything deep on you. The only hope they had would have been to get a cheap play downfield or get your guys on some double move or something. But I mean, at that point, I think Texas understood we're going to run away with this thing and they can't score. The only way they could score is us to give it to them. Guy miss a tackle, us being overly aggressive. And that's why I think the game plan toward the end was just, hey, we got our safeties back. Let them run the football. Let's see if they can drive down the field, which they can.
Yeah. Let's try and at least, if they get in the red zone, maybe we'll push up the pressure a little bit more and try and get but at this point, we just do not want to allow a touchdown because we know it's demoralizing to them if we don't allow a touchdown. And it's really going to be a boost for our team to say, well, we took Oklahoma and they got the lead first and then nothing for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and the starters came back in. You see that at the end of the game? Not all of them, but some of the starters came back in because they didn't want to allow a touchdown at the end of the game.
And we can play the audio in the post game. They talked about it. And what was the thing? Standard's a standard. Hey man, we don't care who's in there, but we did not want to allow it. They took pride in it, did not want to allow a touchdown at the end of that game. They let that Mississippi State one get through. Was it Mississippi State that got that one through late?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that was that they probably watched that film because there wasn't a ton of film against Mississippi State to watch. But they probably watched that multiple times over the bye week. Be like, hey man, I get that didn't matter in that game, but that's gonna matter in another game.
Mm-hmm.
So that can't happen. And I think they took that and said, let's go shut them out and not allow them anything late in this game. And that's where you start pushing closer to that word elite. But I'll still wait another week.
I'm gonna still call him. And one thing I'll give props to, remember Gabe Eichert, who came out and said that Anthony Hill, they should attack him because he's a good player, but he's the worst player on the front seven for Texas. Former Oklahoma Sooner and now an analyst for Sooner football. He came out, shout out. He said one hell of a performance by Anthony Hill Jr. So he didn't duck it, even though obviously it made his statement look foolish. Anthony Hill, 11 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback pressures, 2 sacks, 6 defensive stops, and a forced fumble. And he's the guy that planted the flag, one of the guys that went out there to plant the flag in the middle of the field for the guys and was talking to. He had the Baker Mayfield jersey. I don't know why they chose the Baker Mayfield jersey.
I don't know either. Maybe that was the one they could find.
You're right. Maybe that's the only one they could find. I have no idea. Baker was asked about, as a matter of fact. Can we hear from Anthony Hill here really quickly before we go to
Yeah.
break? So Anthony Hill, he's taking it. And by the way, this all, I believe, a lot of the Texas players, they're referencing when the Sooners wore the T-shirt last year, Danny Stutzman and Brent Venables,
Yes.
that kind of thing. So they're referencing the T-shirt because they believe they got a little bit petty and personal with the T-shirt last year. So that's what this is about, in case you're wondering how this all started. All right, here is Anthony Hill when he was asked about why they decided to plant the flag in the middle of the field and do it on Baker Mayfield's Oklahoma jersey. Here's Anthony Hill.
Can you explain the whole Baker Mayfield jersey?
I just felt like it was a right thing for me to do. I seen all the stuff they posted last year, so I feel like it was right for me to get a little touch of something on them. So I just had to post me a little something to make the team and make us feel good.
Yeah, there you go. And Baker coming off a good game. Baker was asked about it too, so it made its way all the way to the next day to Baker's post game. He was not happy about this either. Look at his face, like, I don't want to be asked about Texas or Oklahoma right now, especially when Oklahoma sucks right now. We know that. Can we hear this Baker audio real quick? Here's Baker Mayfield.
Paid attention to what happened in the Oklahoma game yesterday, but they planted your jersey midfield and stuck a flag through that. What's up with you catching some strays there?
It's just a kid from Austin, Texas that went to Oklahoma and won his last 2 Red River games and being rent-free in their heads for almost a decade now. So, yeah.
I love how petty this thing is. Good.
Dude.
This is good. This is good petty.
The
I'm
funniest,
gonna lie, back and forth. This is good petty.
So this is why
job,
the Baker
everybody.
Mayfield one doesn't really make any sense.
I agree.
But I'll tell you, when he goes, I was red afraid their head, and I was like, those kids didn't watch the game when you played. They asked all the guys, and like Michael Taft watched those games back in the day. Maybe Quinn Ewers did, but most of these guys didn't dream of going to Texas their entire life. Most of these kids were kind of going to wherever schools, and they were like, when's the first Texas OU game you remember watching? They're like, oh, the year before I came. Most of it was the year before they came. When they were being recruited by Texas, they watched the game. So they weren't watching when Baker Mayfield was there. So I don't know why.
I don't know why they chose it.
I'm guessing they either heard some stuff or he posted some stuff on Twitter or liked some, and they were like, man, why is this guy coming after us? I'm guessing it had something to do with that social media beef. Because I'm like, they know you as an NFL player, Baker.
They just pumped. Yeah, they kind of just pumped up Baker. They pumped up Baker, in my opinion. Yeah. It's like, I don't know why they chose Baker. I guess they're saying he's like GOAT status over there at Oklahoma, and they want disrespect.
I don't know. Yeah, because I don't know. Yeah, I was like, I don't know. Maybe they're just selling a Baker Mayfield jersey out there. They could go fun.
Yeah, like I said, it's weird, but I totally get it. I like the petty though. I like the petty. I'm not sure why. Maybe a coach suggested Baker. I don't know. I have no idea. It's interesting, but there you go. Guys having fun, and they're getting petty, man. This thing is getting, and now we can expect it back and forth. If Oklahoma ever gets back on this thing, they're gonna have something petty ready to go too. So we'll get it every year. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we got the Danny Stutzman coming out with the upside down chain.
Yeah, he dressed when I get his pre-game fit, if you will. He had a piece and chain with a Longhorn upside down as the piece on the chain.
That is a lot of money to lose that bad. I'm hoping that was fake gold or something. I'm hoping that was cheap.
Oh no, man! They got NIL, man. They got real. It's real now. It's real these days. The bling they be wearing is real when you got that kind of money. They got it.
That's a sad one as he puts that one back in the jewelry box.
It is. It is a sad one. I agree with you on that but Danny Stutzman, they said the defense, I think, is okay.
He's a good player, but
Oklahoma's got some issues though. Like they might be an offensive identity crisis. Remember when Texas kind of went through this too after it was like right after that 2009 championship run, the precipitous fall from grace for Mac in 2010, the Garrett Gilbert experiment gone wrong. Their Garrett Gilbert is Jackson Arnold. Their offense is one of the worst that we've ever seen. I think they're in the midst of one right now. They are at the start of one, I should say. And they better figure it out quick. If not, they won't get left behind. Because offensively, they're way behind Texas. Defensively, they're still, because Brent Venables is a defensive guy. But you got to find your counterpart, right? Lincoln Riley's still struggling with this. You can't just be a genius in one phase and be like, all right, this phase is going to carry it. No, you got to find your counterpart, and you give Sark a lot of credit PK was his, and it's worked out. Right now, they're the best defense in the country. It's worked out really, really well for Sark. You got to go find that, and right now, Brent Venables is missing that. Bob Stoops was amazing at it because he found Mike Leach, and he always knew from then, all right, I'm going for an air raid guy that fits me, that fits my defense, air raid dude, and he kept getting air raid dudes. Boom, boom. Figure out what you got. I mean, the same thing in dating. I mean, you got to figure out what you like, what's compatible with you, what works with you. All right, you can't just go out there and just start, trying to hit on everything. Well, maybe some of y'all do, but then you're going to be floundering. You got to figure out what works for you, what's compatible with you. And I don't think Brent Venables has figured that out offensively. What is his offensive, the complementary element for him offensively for his defense? And you got to figure, and it's important. And like I said, it's not easy to do, and you got to do a lot of introspection and self-evaluation and self-scouting to know, all right, this works for my style of winning. And Brent Venables hadn't figured it out. I think he's a good coach, but you got to figure that part out. All right, we come back. We'll hear from a great coach. That's Steve Sarkisian. We'll hear from him talking about the Texas-Oklahoma game. We'll also come back and dive more into that matchup. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right. Welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to talk some Texas, Oklahoma. Time to hear from Steve Sarkisian, who, as Patrick pointed out, came to the podium in the post game with a corn dog. It was his first because remember he said he hadn't had a corn dog, a Fletcher's corny dog before. So
no, he said I believe he said before the game if they won, he would get one, and then
if they won, he'd get one.
He would try and get one, and so it was a thing. And that great audio. Wait, if I can pull that audio from the beginning, in there.
No, that's all right. No, I think this one. It tastes better when you win.
Let's see if we get this line.
I'm a corn dog, y'all.
Got my corn dog, y'all. Got my corn dog, y'all.
See, he's even starting to say y'all. Corn dog, y'all.
That's what I was telling
see,
you. I was like,
get a southern
someone-
draw and everything. Look at it.
No, I told my buddy, I was like, can you put that on a shirt? I got my corn dog, y'all.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, started to say y'all got a corn dog, and it's starting to sound like he's from down south. Who knows? All right, that's why Sark's our guy. All right, here's Steve Sarkisian. I think that one of the storylines that obviously I think was a little bit unsettling for Longhorn fans to start was that Quinn was off. He looked like he was a little bit rusty. Here's Sark when he was talking about the basic on the slow start for Quinn and Sark actually talking about the slow start for him and for the offense.
Yeah, it's definitely good to be back. Grew up not too far from here, so it's always nice getting back in the Dallas air. You can definitely feel it, and it's definitely nice. But yeah, it was a rough start, but I think overall we did a good job of when adversity struck, we overcame it, and it's 10% what happens to you, 90% of how you overcome it or what you do. So overall, I think I need to play better, but I think we did a good job overcoming some adversity early.
Yeah, I think just for us offensively, we knew coming in, it was like we had to figure out what they were going to do. We felt like we had a pretty good plan to go attack it. We were a little bit off, and we get sacked early. We're behind the chains a little bit. We have, I think, the ball in the 10 to start one series, and we lose 4 yards on first down. And what happens is, and against good defenses, when you don't win on first down and you get behind the chains, then you end up with third and longs. And third and longs are just tougher to convert. As the game went on, we started winning more on first down, and that gave us more 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 4s, and your conversion rate starts to go up. You can extend drives and stay on the field. But I think the running game helped us quite a bit today, especially in that second quarter. We found a niche there running the ball, which then I think opened some things up in the passing game.
Yeah, I mean, it's, Sark used to always drop the term complimentary football last year, but this is truly a team that uses complimentary football to go win games. That's why even with a quarterback having an off game, they still were able to dominate Oklahoma because of that complimentary football. Here's Sark talking about how that is really one of the identities of this team.
Well, like I said, I think that we played well in all 3 phases today. And I think, as a football team, and as you try to build a team year in and year out, we don't ever want to be one-dimensional. We want to have the ability to play well in all 3 phases, and we want to have the ability, if one of those phases might be a little off, like the offense was early, the defense and special teams can continue to play really well until that phase gets itself going. And we felt like we've built a team to do that, and we feel like we've got confidence in all 3 phases to affect the game and create explosive plays in whatever facet it is. And so it's not always, I think sometimes people look at a score, it's like, well, the offense needed to go score 50 points for it to look the way a game's supposed to look. When you play great defense and you hold the team to 3 points, 34-3 is a heck of a win, in this type of a ball game. So I just think it's because we play a really good complementary football, and we've got a team that has 3 phases that is more than capable of controlling the game while another phase might be a little bit off.
Yep. That's in a nutshell. That's why this team is a great team, is because they don't need just one element to go, one phase to help them win a game. They do really win with all 3 phases, which is why they can not play to the standard 2 weeks in a row and still beat a team by 3 touchdowns and 30 points, because they did not play to the standard versus Oklahoma either. That was not to the standard. It was just that's how high the standard is. The defense, though, yes, they play to the standard. The defense continues to the elite defense. That's a Longhorns have number 1 in total defense, number 1 in scoring defense. Here's Sark on Texas defense performance versus Oklahoma.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I mean, they were getting stuck with some really tough field position, getting short fields, ball was on our end of the field, and they kept putting out fires. And, our defense has assumed a real kind of swagger about them and the way they play, and a real confidence about them. And, we do sudden change drill once a week. And so they know what to expect when that stuff comes, and nobody panics. They just go take the field and they keep playing. And what I love about our defense, it's not about 1 or 2 guys. There's 11 guys out there that play really well together. We rotate a lot of players, and everybody has confidence in the next guy that's going in. And I think that allows us to stay fresh and continue to play well against the run and the pass.
There you go. Start talking about the defense, and here's start talking about the defense more of a more macro an analysis of the defense, talking about what they've done so far this season. Like I said, I'm ready to start using the word elite with this group. Only 3 touchdowns allowed through the first 6 games. Number 1 total and number 1 scoring defense. I can't think of the last time Texas was number 1 in both. This is a dominant group, but they Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Serena Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size, but they have played some dog-ish offenses. But here's Sark talking about how great his defense has been all year.
There's a lot of credit that can go around to some of our veteran players, Michael Taff, and Anthony Hill, a Barron Sorrell, and Alfred Collins, a Vernon Broughton, and then Jade Barron. Then there's this influx of some new faces, right? Whether it's a Trey Moore, Andrew Makuba, Colin Simmons, some of the new faces getting Jalen Gilbo back. But we're a veteran defense when you really look at us. And these guys have played a lot of football, and they may not have all been the stars a year ago, but they've grown into playing really good football individually. But I think more importantly, they're playing really good football collectively. The communication on the defensive side of the ball right now is better than we've ever had it in 4 years. And I think that's a byproduct of Michael in the back end and Anthony in the front of just communicating, getting everybody on the same page, and then playing really well together. Again, I don't think defensively, like, we rely on one guy to go get 3 sacks to play good. It's everybody playing well together, getting the call. We're tackling really well. We're not missing tackles and giving up explosive plays, and we're staying on top in the back end. We're just not letting balls get thrown over our head. And so we can make it hard on teams to have to drive it the length of the field.
Yeah, like I said, I think Texas had defense that are more talented than this group, but I don't know if they've had a defense that plays better overall as a unit, and it's more effective as a unit than this overall defense. Speaking of, well, I also like the moxie of this group, the grit of this group, because late in that game when Oklahoma started to drive a little bit, the starters were out, and I don't know if it was the coaches or if it was the players, but starters came back in that game at the end of the game to deny Oklahoma a touchdown to keep them at 3 points. Here is Taft Daddy and Anthony Hill talking about how they didn't want to allow a touchdown late in that game.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about the standard is the standard. No matter who's in the game, we have a standard, and that's to keep our opponent out of the paint. And that's what we preach every single day. That's what we live by. And, it feels good as a defense to know that they never scored a touchdown. And so no matter if it's 50-0 or it's 34-3, the standard's the standard. That's how we're going to play. We're going to, uplift the guys that are in the game if we're on the sideline, or if we're in the game, the standard's the standard. And I'm so excited. I'm so proud of this whole team.
I would just like to say I'm proud of a lot of the young guys that was in the game on that last drive. We kind of made an emphasis on just keeping them out the end zone, and they held up to our standard. And I'm just thankful that they did that. And we're just going to keep pushing forward some of the young guys because we know we're going to need them in the back end of the season.
All right, there you go. Texas players talking, and Sark talking about their win over Oklahoma. Where's some more audio?
Don't you like to see Anthony Hill just drop in some of the young guys? Like Anthony.
Yeah.
You're a young guy.
Hey, he's a veteran now. That dude's, I mean, I know he's only a second-year player, but he plays like a vet.
He does.
Old soul, man.
That dude.
Old soul.
19 years old.
Yeah.
Some of these young kids.
Yeah, you're right. But you're right. He ain't gonna be here long either. I don't know how long
know.
he's gonna be here the way he's playing. That dude's he is a freak. He is straight up. Like I said, but between him and Colin Simmons, and I'll give Colin Simmons some credit. Remember, Colin Simmons said, what was that, a couple of weeks ago, that we're gonna dominate him, and everybody's like, "Ooh, that's quite the statement for a young buck." Yeah, well, I think he was right. They did dominate them. I like this group because they talk some trash, but they back it up, man. They back it up. All right, we come back. We'll get into the topic for the big fat poll of the day. We'll also have your musically themed day of the week, starting out here on a Monday edition of the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn.
Back on the Rodcast here on a Monday, and that means it's a Smooth Soul Monday, playing you some smooth soul music to ease you back into a work week. Here, it's a good weekend for most people. You know, they're Cowboys fans. It's pretty easy Monday. You feel good about it going in. Maybe talk some trash to any of your friends who root for other teams, and have a good old Smooth Soul Monday here on the Horn. All right, let's get to the big fat poll of the day. Text line's open. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. And we'll get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
All right, we will go with who was the MVP for Texas against OU. And this is, I could have gone offensive MVP. I feel like that's a harder question. It's a little bit hard to go offensive MVP, but we'll go a full on because I think we just want to give Anthony Hill some flowers too. You don't want to give Anthony Hill some flowers. But I'll give you the people we have on there. Quinn Ewers went for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. Trey Wisner, 13 carries for 118 yards and a touchdown. Gunnar Helm, 5 receptions for 91 yards and a touchdown. And Anthony Hill, 11 tackles, 7 solo, 3.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble.
Man, that's good. It's hard. Man, right? If you're going to just player of the game, I'm probably leaning more toward Anthony Hill, Trey Wisner, even though Gunnar Helm, man, that Gunnar Helm drive was amazing. I call it the Gunnar Helm drive because he had that 20-something yarder that he got with the catch and run, and then, of course, Sark with the brilliant play design with the rollout and then the throwback screen to him, which was just amazing. Those are my two. I would say Trey Wisner or Anthony Hill are my two right now. I'm narrowing it down. Even though like I said, Gunnar Helm was great. I'm not going to say he was a player of the game, though, not the MVP of it. It's Trey Wisner or it's Anthony Hill, whichever one. Because the running game and the defense, or honestly, O-line. The O-line. I don't know if we haven't talked enough about them. They did allow that one sack. I think it might have been was it like the first play? It was like, right? That sack was early.
It was
like
first or second play.
Yeah, it was like the first or second play of the game. They allowed that one sack. That was it. I mean, think about that Oklahoma defense. They were top 10 in sacks going into that game, top 15 in tackles for loss going into that game. They were top 3 in takeaways. It was a very opportunistic defense, made a lot of havoc plays. They didn't have a ton of those plays after basically that first drive. You didn't have that's your interception and your sack. Right? And after that, the offensive line, I think so. Then now, would you have liked them to just push Oklahoma around? Yeah, but Oklahoma's a good defense, so they weren't just going to punk Oklahoma, punk that defense. They started to, I think, impose their will on them late in the game. But if the passing game was working, it would open up more in the run game. But your passing game wasn't working, so they really didn't fear much in your passing game. They started to just dropped 2 deep. They dropped 3 deep at times, and Sark just took what the defense was giving him and decided he was going to run it, but he figured out what concept was working best. We'll get into that in Rod's rant, but I'm going Trey Wisner or Anthony Hill. That's my 2. I haven't decided which one.
That's what I'm saying. Because I want to put, defensively, we know is Anthony Hill.
Yeah, no doubt. Offensively.
Thanks, Gabe. Thanks, Gabe Eichert for waking up Anthony Hill like that. I mean, I feel like he was already awake, but it's like smelling salts or something.
I don't know why he said that either. That was a weird thing to say, but it was kind of he did say he's a good player. He just said he's the worst player in your front seven.
The weakest link, and you were like,
so
that
I guess
chain
he's
is
saying,
strong.
So I'm like, your front seven must be really freaking. But you know what? It is the best defense in the country right now. So
it is. But
maybe it is that. I mean, because Brandon Bryden's playing really well. And there's no way he's the weakest link, though.
I mean, again, let me read those 7. He has led the team in tackles. 7 of them are solo. 11 tackles, 7 solo. 3.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble.
Yeah, dude, that's no way he's the worst. I don't know who the worst player is on the front 7. I don't know who it is.
Yeah,
because they're all playing really well, but it ain't him. Okay, I watch a lot of film. That ain't the worst player in the front 7. But you're right. Anthony Hill was just, man, he was all over the damn place too. They had him as a spy. He was rushing a passer.
And by the way,
dropped back in coverage. I mean,
the spies for Texas the entire game, they never overindulged or never committed or ever did anything. Because I think the longest run he had was 11 yards. So there was never a point where you let it get out of control, where you went out and you lose him in the backfield and all of a sudden he's got green grass for 40 yards. That never happened.
He never had that. He never had. It's a good point. He never had green grass. It was always, if it was a run, he had to force like 3 missed
Yes.
tackles and then try to get what
Yeah.
he could. It was never green grass. Texas
That's-
never really turned their backs on him. They kept their eyes on him.
How many times have we seen that where you're supposed to be doing that? And
yeah. What happened against Mississippi State, I think, right?
Yeah.
Once that I think that touchdown run was like that. I think he ended up the C's parting.
yeah,
I believe was the quarterback ended up running in. But you're right. That's a good point. That's why I love the double spots. They put 2 on him. And that was smart now looking back in retrospect because that dude was twitchy. And just one guy in open field, I could see him just putting a little move on him. And
man, that's got to be tough when you're Oklahoma and you're like, so they just put 2 players out there just doing nothing but watching our quarterback, and we still can't find nothing.
Still couldn't get anything downfield. That's a great because the receivers couldn't get open.
They couldn't.
Texas didn't fear the receivers, and there was no need to.
And on the flip side of that, even though when Texas, when Quinn was not hitting them, they were wide open. Texas was
Quinn that first one he misses Golden on. He was wide open, and even you're right. I mean, Quinn was just off. Like I said, the hope is that it was just rust from the injury and from the time off, and that Georgia game he'll play, like we expect him to, what we become accustomed to with him. But if he plays like that versus Georgia, I still think you can beat Georgia. It's just going to be an uglier win. You got to win with defense.
And he wasn't terrible the rest of the game.
Terrible, yes.
It was the first 2 series were really bad, and then they just focused more on the run. So they didn't give him a ton of shots after that.
I think it was some smart on Sark.
I agree, but at the same point, it wasn't like he was bad in the second half of the game. It was just he didn't use him much. So
which I said I support. I think that was wise. I think he was a little off, and I think Sark felt the game. He's like, you know what, we can win this game in other ways. I don't have to put so much on Quinn if he's having an off day and force him into some really compromising situations potentially. So I think he knew that how good this team was compared to Oklahoma. So they won it in a way that really is uncharacteristic of a Sark team, or at least the Sark teams that we know, and they did it with the run game and with defense. And I don't think Sark cares pretty much how they did. He came to the damn post game with a corny dog, so I think he was happy with everything. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk more about that. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian. Raj Rant, I'll tell you where I thought I saw growth from Sark in this game. I saw a lot of growth from him. One thing that I have been critical about with Sark's coaching style, and I think he in this game really showed me a different side of him, and I'll talk about that too in Raj Rant. We'll also get into NFL news, notes, and nuggets. Texans with a big win. What the hell did we see with the Dallas Cowboys? What did we witness? We'll talk about it. We'll hear from Jerry Jones, all of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a smooth Monday edition of the Rodcast. That's when my co-host, the Idealionaire Patrick Davis, that's when he plays jams intended to soothe the tortured soul of some of you sports fans out there whose team may have had an off weekend. And for Cowboys fans, you definitely need a smooth soul Monday. Also, the purpose of a smooth soul Monday is to make sure that you have an easy, smooth transition into the work week from a hopefully relaxing, fun-filled, stress-free weekend. And now you got to deal with meetings and traffic and adulting. And we know that can be very stressful, even traumatic for some folks out there. Thus the purpose of a smooth soul Monday, to make sure it's a smooth transition for you. So we appreciate Patrick doing that. We also appreciate Patrick coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is already posted on X at the Horn ATX. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll today. Who was the MVP for Texas against OU?
Yeah, I think, man, right now I'm going to go with, it's hard, man. It's Trey Wisner or Anthony Hill. I just don't know which one. I mean, Trey Wisner the last 2 weeks. Can we just talk about this real quick? The last 2 weeks, this dude, so basically in SEC play, because last 2 games, not 2 weeks, because I know they had a bye week. So last 2 games, averaging over 7 yards per carry, 206 rushing yards, 10 forced missed tackles on 26 rush attempts in the last 2 games.
Hey.
I don't know if he might be your. I don't know if you want to declare one back a lead back or the other, but Trey Wisner's role, or at least Trey Wisner's workload and usage, probably needs to expand.
Yeah, I mean,
increase.
Sark was asked in the post game point blank, is Trey Wisner done enough to earn the starting job? And he did not answer point blank, but he basically said, look, the defenses we play against, some Trey Wisner will be better against, some Jaden Blue will be better against, and we will use them in the ways that we feel they'll best be used. So basically saying it's going to depend on the matchup, because they have 2 different styles of running. And so whatever the matchup is, we can play that way.
Yeah, no, he's right. It's about their elite traits, and the elite traits for Trey Wisner, I think, are his patience, his vision, and surprising physicality for his size. You don't think he's going to be a physical back, but he actually is really physical and finishes runs. And I think for Jaden Blue, it's world-class, elite speed and explosivity. And I think he's a better natural receiver than Trey Wisner is. I think he just looks smoother when Jaden Blue's, being a pass catcher out of the backfield than Trey Wisner. Not that Trey Wisner can't do that, but I think Jaden Blue is better at it. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. I think you're going to need, based on the injury bug in that room, you're going to need them both.
Yep.
You can't afford to just give one guy too much of a workload anyway. But I think we've all been pleasantly surprised by what Trey Wisner's brought to the table. So to me, you know what? I'm going Trey Wisner. I'm going Trey Wisner as my MVP. Only because only because I think that Texas defense has so many guys balling.
Yeah.
I think they would have been all right without Anthony Hill. Would they have made as many plays? No, but you think they'd have been all right. They'd have been all right without Anthony Hill. It's just great that Anthony Hill showed up when one of the Oklahoma faithful called him out via social media, and he had a great game. But who expected Trey Wisner to have that kind of game? Not many, because Jaden Blue, I don't even think Sark did. That's why he started Jaden Blue in the game. I don't think and who knew that Quinn was going to be off. So in terms of what you needed and who was more valuable to you, Trey Wisner was more valuable. You could have won that game without Anthony Hill.
Yeah.
You could have won that game. You could have dominated Oklahoma. They still wouldn't have scored without Anthony Hill out there. It'd have been LaFau and Bender balling out of control. And I'm just saying he's great, but you still would have been okay because your secondary is good, your D-line's good. I'm not sure about the offense because you couldn't maximize your weapons in the passing game as much because Quinn was a little off. And you were going up against a really opportunistic and I think a really good Oklahoma defense, especially in the back 7 with some All-American caliber players. And you didn't want to be continuously throwing into that back 7 with Venables playing mind games with his creative, innovative, pressure packages and exotic looks, and a quarterback who's off in the Texas OU game. Trey Wisner's performance was more valuable.
Yeah, and I know that you have your embarrassment of riches in the wide receiver room, but you did lose your wide receiver 1 in Isaiah Bond as well.
Great
so
point.
that was another piece, is that Bond got hurt in the game twice, I believe.
Yeah, you're right.
He hurt his ankle and
Nice.
then tweaked it
Ankle
again
injury.
a little bit later, and so they kept him out for the rest of the game. But that takes out your number one guy at wide receivers there as well. So yeah, I think that Trey Wisner being able to set that tone, especially in the second half too, being able to continue to run the football on them, it's just it's a big piece, and it's great to see. It's great to see that we can say again when you talk about depth in running back depth, that we can say in the two biggest games of the year, the MVPs might be two different running backs against Michigan and Oklahoma so far.
Yeah. And then both of them, Gunnar Helm was your leading receiver.
Yeah.
Who had that one on their bingo card?
The scorecard. Who had Gunnar Helm in the Michigan and Oklahoma game, and then two different running backs coming out and showing out against Michigan and Oklahoma.
Unbelievable. Gunnar freaking Helm. I mean, can we post like that Shaq meme that I mean, I said that's my Gunnar Helm. That is my Gunnar Helm take for the year. That Shaq meme. I owe you an apology. I wasn't really familiar with your game.
I didn't know he was a hurdler either.
That is
apparently
I'm saying, like the yak yards, like everything. I'm like, who is this guy? Like I don't recognize this Gunnar Helm at all. This Gunnar Helm could play on Sunday.
You know what's so funny is that, you know what Gunnar Helm has done this year? That they put up the stat, or they put up the little graphic, and they said the number 9 tight end class in this NFL draft class, number 9 ranked tight end. And at this point in the season, the guy I'm sitting with, me and him go, number 9.
Number 9.
There ain't 8 ahead of him.
Show me 8.
But imagine saying that before the season.
No, I mean like 9. I'd be like, he's in the top 10.
Yeah,
I'm like, no, I think there's got to be 10 better than. I would be shocked that he would be in the top 10, but no, there's no doubt about it, man. He's playing at a really high level. He's your leading receiver. Your two biggest games of the year so far, Gunnar Helm has been the leading receiver. Let that sink in for a second.
Yeah,
wow, fan, that shows you how deep the weaponry is, the array of weapons are, I should say, for Texas. I mean, it could be anybody on any given day. It could be Jaden Blue. Now we know Trey Wisner can be a guy. Gunnar Helm can be a guy.
Yeah.
Bond can be a guy. Wingo can be a guy. Wingo.
I mean, if you teach Matthew Golden how to throw a football, he'd have 2 touchdowns.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into that, too, actually, because I want to get into that. One little nugget. I think it should have been a dead giveaway. The first time he throws it, he's got the big white gloves on like he's Mickey Mouse. Second time he throws it, no gloves on. And like, you see a wide receiver out there with no gloves, old school, like old school, like he's, you know what I mean? Like he had to like Sterling Sharp back in the day, and then you like something's up, bro. What's the last time you saw a wide receiver with no gloves on?
Oh, no.
I won't say like Jordan Shipley used to do it sometimes, but it's rare. I don't know. I think I used to see Ship like that every now and then, but you don't see no receiver with no gloves on these days. You see a receiver with no gloves on, you know something is wrong.
Especially you don't see him take them off.
He's just out there with no gloves, like, time out. Coach, he ain't got no gloves on. Something's up. Something's he ain't got no gloves on. It's weird. Something's going on, Coach. Like, that's what I know. I was like, oh, he ain't got no gloves on. And as soon as I said it, boom. I think I want to say Quinn went under center too with it, if I'm not mistaken. And anytime Texas is under center, also something funky's going on, guys. Texas is never really under center. They go under center. It's every now and then. I think they have a couple of run concepts, but it's very rare. Texas under center, something weird is going on too.
I think Brent Venable, that was far enough into the game. Venable said maybe stop carrying as much.
I guess so. He probably's not yelling in the headset like he was.
Yeah.
But yeah, at that point, like I said, that's what I was like. Oh, something's up, and then boom, they go with the double patch. I will say, I'm not gonna say we called the double patch. Shout out to my man CJ Vogel, who did actually call. He said it was gonna be a touchdown, but it's came close. He said Matthew Golden was gonna do it, but I did say we were gonna get a trick play. I said, Sark, he hadn't run a trick play all season. He's got a trick play for the Texas OU game because it's the Texas OU game. So he's got a trick play. And Sark admitted he doesn't practice trick plays without using them because he thinks that's stupid. And the players, he said they start to distrust the stuff that you are installing in practice because they never see it in the games. And he doesn't like to do that. So if he runs it or if he practices it, they're going to run it. And yeah, I told you, trick play. And ran it twice in that matchup. So we'll get to that too, because that's part of that some of the details from that are in my Raj rant. So we'll get to that too coming up next segment. But that's the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Go check it out at X on X, I should say, at the Horn ATX. But first, let's get to some NFL discussion. We'll talk about the Cowboys. We'll talk about the Texans. But first, let's get educated. Let's get updated. Let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB playoffs, the Dodgers took Game 1 of the NLCS in commanding fashion with a 9-0 win over the Mets. Mookie Betts helped with 3 RBIs, and the Dodgers pitching only allowed the Mets 3 hits and 3 walks in the game. Game 2 of that series is tonight, or today. Game 1 of the ALCS begins tonight with Alex Cobb getting the start for the Guardians against Carlos Rodon and the Yankees. In college football, Texas continued their dominant season with a 34-3 win over OU in the Red River rivalry. Quinn Ewers threw for a touchdown and ran one in, while Trey Wisner picked up 118 yards on the ground and a TD himself. Anthony Hill wrecked shop on the other side of the ball, leading Texas in tackles and adding 2 sacks and 3.5 tackles for loss. Elsewhere, Penn State needed overtime to knock off USC 33-30. Tennessee needed overtime as well to beat Florida 23-17. LSU also got an overtime win over Ole Miss 29-26, and Oregon just edged out Ohio State 32-31. Texas maintains their number 1 ranking with Oregon taking number 2, followed by Penn State, Ohio State, and Georgia at number 5. And in the NFL, the Texans handled business in their matchup with the Patriots, winning 41-21, with a returning Joe Mixon picking up 102 yards on the ground and 2 total touchdowns. And the Cowboys never got out of the gates against the Lions, losing 47-9, an embarrassing loss while dealing with a rash of injuries. Tonight, the Bills take on the Jets and new interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich on Monday Night Football, and that is your Horn headlines.
Let's talk about that Old Testament, old biblical style butt whipping that the Detroit Lions put on the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones celebrating his birthday this weekend too.
He's celebrating nothing.
Then I have to experience and watch the worst loss that he's had at home for the Cowboys as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. So it's ugly. 47 points they allowed, 486 yards. And this is how disrespectful it got for the Detroit Lions. And you can tell, you got to give Coach Dan Campbell some credit, man. He's petty in a beautiful way. And I'm sure for Cowboys fans, you probably got tired of watching this, but they were unsuccessful. It's probably one of the only things that they didn't succeed at. They were hell bent on trying to get an offensive lineman to score a touchdown. Hell bent on it. Because remember, last time the Cowboys and the Lions played, you had the controversy, remember, about the offensive lineman and whether he was eligible or not. And it seems like Dan Campbell wanted to throw that in the referee's face because he was going to try to score. So they had early on in that game, they attempted a touchdown pass to Taylor Decker. All right. And that was like in the third quarter. They were already up big. They attempted a touchdown pass in the third quarter to an offensive lineman. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown tried to hook and lateral to Penei Sewell in the third quarter too. And then in the fourth quarter, when Hendon Hooker was in there, he was sacked, but he was sacked because they sent their offensive tackle Dan Skipper out on the route, and he was trying to hit him on a route out there on a passing concept. Man, they were hell bent on. So remember, like I said, week 17 of last season, Detroit had that 2019 loss to the Cowboys, and a big part of the loss was that 11-yard touchdown pass with 23 seconds left, and the Lions needed a 2-point conversion. And remember, they wanted Taylor Decker, I believe, they completed the pass to him for the conversion, and then the referee called he flagged them for illegal touch by an offensive lineman, saying that he was lined up wrong. And then we found out later that the referee might have screwed it up because he might have mixed up the offensive lineman. He was thinking about one offensive lineman who's supposed to declare himself before the play, which he did.
Yes.
But the referee thought it was another guy. Anyway, but the long story, I'm sure by now, Cowboys fans and Detroit Lions fans are tired of hearing about it. But my point is, Dan Campbell, he was thinking about it. Because literally in the game plan, they were trying their damnness to get an offensive lineman to score. but none of them worked out for him. None of them worked out for him. I think Goff's pass to Decker was incomplete. The hook and lateral to Sewell was negated by an ineligible downfield penalty. And then I want to say the other one, there was a sack, of course, on the last one. So they never got the ball out. But he was trying to embarrass y'all Cowboys fans. Well, I think he already succeeded in embarrassing the Cowboys fans out there. I will say this about the Cowboys. I expected them to get beat. We talked about it because being down DeMarcus Lawrence and being down, Micah Parsons, and we thought we'd see DeRon Bland, but DeRon Bland also not available for the Cowboys. They were just missing too many pieces on defense. And you talked about all the injuries they've had at the edge position. I didn't think they get embarrassed like this. This is inexcusable because you're an NFL team with professionals. So you shouldn't get embarrassed like they did. But I think we all knew the Cowboys were going to lose. I just didn't think they were going to get mollywopped in that fashion. I didn't think it was happening that back. I thought the offense would be able to score more points and keep them in the game. The offensive issues they have, that may be more concerning to me than the defensive issues, only because, you're not missing much offensively. You are what you are, and yet still the offense right now looks to be struggling. The whole team is struggling, but offensively, you should be able to keep up a little bit better. But defensively, how about this? The Cowboys have allowed 167 points in their last 4 home games. By the way, being 0-3 at home is not a good thing. We'll hear from Jerry Jones here in just a second. They've lost their last 4 home games. This includes the playoff game from last season to the Packers. They've allowed 167 points in those games, including that is the 3rd most over a 4-game span at home in NFL history. That's a problem. Like that's an issue for the Cowboys. So at this point, yeah, Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, with that division being what it is now, and the Washington Commanders being a team that's more than competitive, and now having to deal with, I don't know if Philly's going to be what some people thought they would be, but still, I don't know if you're good enough to beat Philly looking the way that you look right now.
I mean, and that was the offensive line looked awful in the game. Like they're a better offensive line than that. There was one of the plays, I don't know if it was Zach Martin or I don't know if he was in that at that point, but the right guard literally just got pushed backwards and out of the play. It was one of those things where you're like, how did you get pushed back that hard? And I mean, afterwards, he just kind of hit himself in the helmet and was like, that was the worst play I probably had in, 5 years. I mean, I was just off balance. I was just off balance, and he just pushed me aside and ran past me. And so you saw that Dak took 4 sacks in the game, but he was off his, not being able to throw properly for probably half the game. The run game did nothing to help whatsoever. You were able to get nothing going there. You didn't really run it much because you were down, but that meant that they knew to just tee off and go after Dak because you weren't going to run the ball. You ran Zeke 8 times for 17 yards. Why is he still in a football jersey?
I have no idea why they run.
Like, I don't care. I don't care who you call up at this point. There's absolutely no reason Zeke should be touching a football anymore. Like it's done. Now, maybe you want to rest him for 4 or 5 weeks and then give him another shot. But I can tell you right now, you can put him on the practice squad, and there's not one team in the NFL who's going to even pick up a phone. He looks awful.
He does. He looks terrible.
Enrico Dottle, very good complimentary back. Totally put him in a rotation. He did okay coming out of the backfield, receiving as well. It wasn't great at any source, but no one was in that game. Not going to hate on Rico Dottle, but the fact that you gave Zeke more carries than Rico Dottle is also insane to me in that game. Yeah. It just everything went downhill.
He had a 12-yard run. Yeah, that's more explosive than the Cowboys usually are. Average 5 yards.
Exactly.
So he wasn't terrible.
He wasn't. He wasn't doing great, but he wasn't doing terrible. But yeah, it was just everything over it. And I know people are getting more concerned. I mean, receivers weren't making big plays. The receivers weren't making anything. We saw guys dropping passes that they, I think it was Flournoy who had one that just went through his hands. It was just over and over again. You saw plays not being made by the Cowboys, by everybody. And it felt like we talked about it last week, and we could walk into that game saying the Cowboys are probably going to lose to the Lions because they're just kind of beat up. So they're probably going to lose. Lions are a good team. It's not terrible. But then you have that performance where it felt like they knew they were going to lose. And so they didn't even show up.
That's it. It's like we can say it and we can believe it.
Yeah.
It seems like y'all also believe that y'all were going to lose too. So y'all just decided, nah, we're not going to show up. And that's inexcusable for the Dallas Cowboys. And they just don't have any depth either. This team does not have a lot of depth.
No.
Now, that depth is being tested, of course, but they don't have talented depth on the team right now to be able to withstand a lot of these injuries. And so when they get the guys back, the Cowboys will be competitive again. But you can tell which everybody in the league has to deal with without their frontline starters, man, there's a significant drop off on defense. But on offense, like I said, I'm more concerned about the offense because they're not missing much on Brandon Cooks. They're missing.
Yes.
Missing Brandon Cooks. But it shows you the lack of depth. They don't have, a wide receiver 3 on this roster that they believe can go out there and be a significant contributor and complement CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's one of the best wide receivers in the league. They got to double team him, and he demands he has gravity and demands you allocate resources to him, and yet other guys for the Cowboys just can't get open.
No, I mean, you saw,
Dak can't get any protection either.
Jalen Brooks, 1 catch for 15 yards, 6 targets.
Yeah, man.
That's not good. CeeDee Lamb, 7 receptions, 14 targets.
That's not good either, though.
No. I mean, Tolbert, again, I know he didn't do much, but 4 receptions and 5 targets. I'll at least give him that. He's a solid number 3 for you when Brandon Cooks comes back.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm fine. Tolbert is a solid number 3 for you. Rico Dowdle is a solid number 2 running back. The issue is you don't have a number 1, and if your number 2 gets hurt, which we knew Brandon Cooks is going to miss some games, there's a problem. Now, I'm not saying they don't have to go out and get a top guy of any of these things, but you got to go out and get a couple players in this bye week. You have to try and do something if you want to compete. You cannot stand pat if you're the Cowboys during this bye week and hope that everything works out, because we like what we have. Were you watching the same team this season?
Jerry Jones, I don't know. He sounds really hurt. He sounds like he sounds like he's ready to do something. Can we hear from Jerry a little bit here? This is Jerry in the post game, and if you witness that thrashing, that old biblical style butt whipping that the Cowboys got, there's no way you can decide to be to stand pat in his bye week and be inactive. So here's Jerry Jones, his celebrating his birthday, by the way. He had to watch his Cowboys take the worst beating at home since he's been the owner. Here's Jerry Jones.
Thanks to Detroit, and thanks to a lot of things you can criticize about what we were about out there today. It can't be about that. It can't be. We're not. We've got to assess. We've certainly got a bye week, but there's nothing magic about a bye week. You can do some things differently within 3 days of some of the things that bit us out there today. This was very concerning, and it was very humbling, and it was very I felt bad because of all of our great fans, especially the ones in the stadium, and certainly the ones that are all about the Cowboys. So we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. All right. So, nothing magical about the bye week, and he's right about that. But they got to do something in the bye week. The Cowboys don't make a move in the bye week. They're telling you exactly what their intentions are this season, because they've watched this now. It's a multiple sample size. We all know what the glaring deficiencies are, and if they don't make some kind of move to trade for a run-stopping D tackle or a running back, then the Cowboys are, I think they're satisfied with just being, a contender in the division and not a championship contender. Pretty much. That's basically because that's what they are. They can compete in that division right now, but they're not a championship contenders. They're regressing, guys. They're getting worse. It started with the Packers game. Now they're getting worse. This is not a team where they won 12 games the last 3 years. Do we see them winning 12 games?
No, I don't see them winning 12 games. But yeah, this feels like, okay, well, now what? I can go after this season. I can fire Mike McCarthy or let him go out of his contract, and we'll bring in somebody else. and then I'll sell that. So that'll get me through another year where I don't spend any money in free agency, and I don't have to go ahead and try and do it, because I'll say now that we've got this new guy, we'll be that'll fix all our problems. And we've paid our 2 guys that, as much as everybody can get mad they paid them, they had to pay them. Like there isn't another option on that one. You're not signing anybody in free agency.
No.
You're not going to get a draft pick that's bad enough to be able to draft your next guy. And look, you watch the NFL, and you can watch all the rookies that got drafted. It's not like any of them look like they're playing any better than him. I mean, other than Jaden Daniels. So maybe you have one guy that looks like he's playing better than Dak. The rest of them aren't. So
yeah, you're right about that.
So you say, I don't know. I mean, you basically walked through an offseason, and the only things you did were things you should have done before the offseason even started.
Sign your own guys.
Sign your own guys, and then worked on going out and getting other guys in free agency and building up a team. But it just feels like it's going to be let's get through this season, and then after this, Mike McCarthy, and we've moved on. We've now signed this coach, and he's going to take us, and I think he's got us ready to win a Super Bowl, and then do nothing again.
And I mean, I'm looking at this schedule, and some of the games that I think I initially thought the Cowboys would win. I think I had them like 11 wins or something like that. At San Fran, like you said, that's your measuring stick about where you are. And right now, they're not close. San Fran's had their struggles too, but that's after your bye week. So hopefully everybody's healthy. But even with the guys you had healthy before, I don't see you weren't a better team than them. Then you're at Atlanta, which is no pushover anymore. Atlanta can play some ball, versus Philly. Man, you can lose 2 out of those 3. Then you're Houston. You could lose 3 out of 4. Washington, the way they're playing.
Yeah. No, I mean, we talked about it last week, was the really big game is coming out of that bye week. That 49ers game, that if you can take a 49ers team that isn't playing their best football, you can come out of that bye week and beat them. But the team that's going into the bye week does not feel like they're going to beat an even down 49ers team. So you have to figure some things out right now. And I think
guaranteed wins left are Giants and Carolina. You got a Bengals left. Bengals are not playing well, but they don't guarantee you're going to beat the Bengals.
But that's the thing.
And Tampa Bay right now is playing some good football.
And if you're the Cowboys, I think you have to make a move solely in the fact that you have to try and give this team some hope. And that'll be a way to do it. If you bring another running back in, or you bring another defense, you just bring somebody into this team. Now, the trade you don't need to make is for Devontae Adams. It's not the trade you need to make. But
no, you need a running back.
I get that.
Go
but
get a running back. Overspend for one too. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about in terms of draft capital. Go get a good one that you think can make a difference in the backfield for you.
No, exactly.
Because it would make it. Think about what it did. We'll get into this too. Think about what the infusion of a healthy Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce did for the Texans offense. Didn't even look the same. Like a totally different offense because you had 2 capable runners in the backfield.
100%.
Look at we just talked about Texas, how Texas won the Texas OU game. How'd they win it? Capable running back. It'll change the entire complexion of the offense, man. If you get somebody back there who actually can not just move the chains, potentially that can change the game. You need a dynamic presence back there, someone who can break a play wide open. You don't really have that. And like I said, I hope that's the case because there are guys, like I said, Texans have 2 of them. I think Patrick and I were the first ones on board saying last season, Cowboys should trade for Dameon Pierce because the Texans, I don't know if they really want him. They should make the Texans an offer. Trade for Dameon Pierce.
I'm the Texans now. I ain't even trading him because I'm
like, now it's we need both of them now because the Joe Mixon situation, all that. But I'm just saying back then when everybody was down on him and his stock was down, I was like, go get him. Go get him.
Like a 5th.
Oh man, 5th, 6th.
Yes,
Texas would have gave him up back then. They would have gave him up, but nope, you missed an opportunity. You got to pounce on it at the time, and you got to be able to anticipate these issues. But the crazy about that, we all saw this coming.
Everybody saw it coming. He didn't do anything.
Everybody saw it. Everybody was like, Cowboys going to some real issues at running back. For the last 2 years, we've been saying that.
Yes.
Even after the Tony Pollard injury,
because they signed Zeke, and we were like, you signed an RB4? Great. You signed the guy who's a running backs coach and you signed
pretty much. Yes, you want to coach on the field. Listen, that's the sad thing about it. The D tackle thing. That's different. I don't know if we saw that coming. The Mozzie Smith thing didn't work out, but I will say they have not properly invested in the D tackle position. But that's something I think now that needs a long term and a short term, a short term solution and a long term plan when it comes to that position. But now there's no doubt about it. It's the Cowboys. Like I said, I see two. I'm not saying they're going to lose all these games, but I see two guaranteed wins left on the schedule from what I've seen. That's it. And it's the Giants and the Carolina Panthers.
Just to note that thoughts to Aiden Hutchinson. That injury looked horrific.
Yeah, it was gruesome.
And
it was gruesome.
I mean, that sucks for the Lions that you have that big of a win. You can't even celebrate afterwards because he's gone for the season. But
he was leading the NFL in sacks.
Yeah, you're now hope he can come back and be the same player.
You just hoping he can come back and play because those types of injuries, when I see those and I see them with skill position guys or quarterbacks or something, they don't have to have 300-pound humans leaning on them every play.
Yeah.
So it's, to me, their comebacks are a little, I don't know. I think they're a little more likely, and I'm more optimistic about it. I'm not saying he's not going to come back, but man, think about that.
Yeah.
Think about how sturdy you have to be to have 300-pound humans and leaning on you every play. It was gruesome. It was hard to watch, and such a great player. I mean, he's an amazing player too. All right. So we'll get to Rod's rant on the other side. We'll talk Texans. I promise you that. We'll get to the Texans. That's less to discuss with the Texans because I think it's just as Patrick has talked about, and I've mentioned as well. When they get a running game, that team, that offense with a running game, that looks like a team that could potentially compete or at least be able to challenge Kansas City in the AFC. But you can tell they need the running game. Without the running game, they can't. They're different offense. They don't even look the same.
Yeah, it's third and long or third and short. Which one do you want?
Which one do you want? Exactly. All right. Speaking of, Longhorns had too many third and longs early on, ended up with some third and shorts, and that's when they were able to start separating from Oklahoma. I'll talk about the growth that I saw from Sark as a play caller and as a head coach. I noticed something in the game. You guys know I've been critical of Sark in for this specific reason. Even as we've seen him grow and evolve into one of the best coaches in college football, I still think there was room for growth in this area. I saw it versus Oklahoma. We'll talk about it when we come back on the rant right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Beaver's coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation in Rod's rant of the day. A couple of things I want to get to here. One of the things I've been on the record, talking about how Sark has grown as a coach and become more of a chess master within the game. And there's still some areas where I think you could see even more growth from Sark and him becoming a championship level coach. One of them, and I kind of described in different ways, that Sark always is trying to achieve balance and moderation in his offense. And I've called for him to become an extremist at times. Like, I need you to become an extremist. I need you to quit seeking balance and moderation. One of the ways I think that he has grown in that area is the identity of the offense this year. Now, your early down pass rate in this past game versus Oklahoma was probably close to 50%. Why? Because your quarterback was off. And once he noticed his quarterback was off, something else that I've seen growth from him as a coach, his feel of the game, he shut it down. He shut down. He wanted to start with the early down pass rate being high, which has been in the 60s so far this year. Hell, even with Arch's second start, it was above 65% early down pass rate, because he wants to lean on the strength of his offense, and the identity of it right now is your passing game, right? Gun or helm, your deep wide receiving core, the deepest and the most talented quarterback room in the country. Hell, you potentially might have two first and second round tackles right now. That's where some of the projections are for Cam Williams, and we know for Kelvin Banks. So that's the identity of the team. Your identity is your strength. And he's been leaning into that. So that's him becoming more of an extremist, because usually he wants to kind of have balance in the offense. But this year, I think he said, screw the balance. My running back room is a mash unit, and all my talent is in the passing game. So that's one area of growth. But in this game, you saw him as a coach and a kind of a chess master. I saw his feel of the game improve too, because even though as soon as he saw Quinn was off, that pass rate dropped. He said, all right, we got to go to running game. And so you had your only game where your early down pass rate was below 60% for Quinn. I believe the other one, you had two games where you're below 60% early down pass rate. It was this past game against Oklahoma, and then Arch's first start. Makes sense, right? Young quarterback. We're not going to put too much on his plate. And then right after that, his very second start, they decided, hey, we're going to go with a 65+% early down pass rate, because we think he can handle it. He's a prodigy. But I digress. Getting back to it. So that was one area of growth, right? Sark's feel of the game, which I've challenged, and him becoming an extremist. I'm starting to see it. And he was an extremist in this game when he needed to be. So he starts to lean on the run game because he notices Quinn is off. That's okay. He's like, all right, we can win this game in other ways. And then he's starting to run the football, and he's troubleshooting, trying to figure out what run concepts are going to work. And Brent Venables' defense is well prepared for Sark's run game, because anytime they were pulling an offensive lineman, any pull concepts from your offensive lineman, so pin and pull schemes, your counters, any buck sweeps of that kind. Matter of fact, 2 of their first 3 running plays, they pulled offensive linemen, and it took the linebackers from Oklahoma right to the football. And they were fast flow to the football, and actually times over pursuing to the football, because they were so fast flow. And the one thing that Sark figured out, and this was probably, remember after the 26-yard gain by DeAndre Moore, Quinn rolling to the right, goes out of the pocket, throws it, he catches on the sideline, beautiful catch. Sark there's 2 runs by Trey Wisner. There's a 4-yard run, a 6-yard run. And if I'm not mistaken, they're the same run concepts. Yep, they are. Essentially, that 6-yard run, he's running a split. It's a split zone, split wide zone, and they get a 4-yard run, and I think like a 6-yard run in there. And I think that's when Sark figures something out. He said, okay, I got something here. And I think he figured out, I think I got something in the running game. And after that, you'll go look at it. He had all of the Texas' biggest runs were in that second quarter, man. That's the big run they had, period. But I'm talking about like the actual run game, design runs for running backs. They had 3 runs for running backs, design runs for running backs, 3 runs total over 10 yards. Guys, they all came within 4 plays. Think about that. They all came within 4 plays. It was the Trey Wisner, the Trey Wisner 36-yarder that ended up being the fumble recovery by Silas Bolden. So shout out to Silas Bolden there. And then the next play is the 43-yard touchdown run for Trey Wisner. And then you had a 13-yard run by Jaden Blue on the next drive where you had the missed field goal. So essentially within 4 plays, all right, within 4 plays, there was the 1st and 10 at the OU 36 with 2:21 left, 36-yard run by Trey Wisner, fumble recovery by Silas Bolden for a touchdown. And then the next drive for Texas offensively, you had a Trey Wisner 43-yard touchdown run. And then on the next drive, you had a Matthew Golden double pass, right, that he missed terribly on. And then you had the Jaden Blue run for 13 yards. So those were your top rushing plays for running backs. Guys, they were the same running concept, different formations, same running concept. It was a split flow wide zone. It was a split wide zone. One was a split wide zone RPO. That was the 36-yard. It was a split wide zone stick RPO. But they handed it off, so it ended up being a split wide zone. And the 43-yarder was also a split wide zone. And the 13-yarder, split wide zone. He found it out. He figured it out right there. In 3 different drives. All right. But it was basically 4 plays. Your 4 offensive plays within that sequence came your 3 most explosive running back runs. That is not a coincidence. Sark found what was working. It worked because of the over pursuit of the Oklahoma linebackers, and it worked because they were fast flow and they were reading anytime you pulled an offensive lineman. So don't pull him. You don't pull him when you're just doing a split wide zone. They're just zone blocking everything. The split is the split flow with Gunnar Helm making that backside block. And Sark, he became an extremist about that concept. He didn't just say, I'm going to sprinkle in. I found something that works. I'm going to sprinkle it in here and there. No. He was like, it works. Damn it. I'm going to run it until they stop it. Remember I kept saying, run it until they stop it. Because you're going to miss the opportunity when they make the adjustment. So just run it down their throat, and then until they stop it, until they choke on it. And he did. That was the game, guys. If he doesn't become an extremist about that in that moment, I don't know if you pull away the way you do. He had to. That was Sark. Remember I say Sark hates? I would say Sark must not eat leftovers. I love leftovers. All right. I love to eat something one day and I'm like, oh, next day I'm looking forward to those leftovers because I'm going to eat it again. I play the hits. I want to, you know what I mean? They always say in the radio, play the hits. Sark never played the hits. He was always reluctant to play the hits because he has such a deep bag of creative, innovative ideas and concepts. He's like, I want to try this. And I want to try that. No. When you try something that's working, run it again until they stop it. And that's exactly what he did with that split zone out, a split wide zone. He's like, all right, they're not going to stop it. I'm going to keep running. And they initially did. They initially started to figure, they stopped over pursuing to the football, and you were getting 3 and 4 yard, 4 or 5 yard gains out of it instead of your 36 and 43-yard gain, 13-yard gain. He popped it. And that was the key. And also the key was the guy you used. You used Jaden Blue on one of those, but I think Sark also figured out Trey Wisner's patience and vision are key to when these pop. Because, yeah, Jaden Blue might get you, 5 or 6 yards on it. But if you can be patient enough, you have the vision to wait till the blocks align, man, you can pop it for a huge gain. And that's why Trey Wisner in those moments was better and more compatible with the strategy and the run game versus Oklahoma than a Jaden Blue is, because his elite traits are his vision, his patience, and surprising physicality to break tackles at the next level. And yeah, I'll give Sark credit that he became an extremist in that moment. I'm like, yeah, run it again. They stopped the first, run it again. He kept running. He's like, I'm running it again. And it didn't keep working all the way in the second half, but right there in the second quarter, that's when he pulled away, guys. And it's because he was an extremist about it, because he had great feel of the game. My quarterback's off. All right, tell with it. We're going to run the ball. And then in that moment, figuring out what works after you troubleshoot all your different ideas. And then once you figure out what works, man, just hammer it. And that's the growth. I did not see that from Sark in years past. He wouldn't hammer it. He'd be like, oh, I'm going to come back to it. Don't come back to it. Play the hits. Play them right now over and over and over again until they stop it. And that's what he did. And also, another example of that, the double pass, guys. Didn't work in the first half. He's like, damn, it was open though. Okay, it was open. Should we run it again? Play the hits? You damn right he did. He came right back to it. He's like, all right, now they should have known Matthew Golden didn't have the Mickey Mouse white gloves on the second time. As a DB, I've been like, something's up. when's the last time you seen a DB in a corner, a wide receiver in the modern age without gloves on? Didn't have the gloves on. I think Quinn was under center, so it looked a little different. I think the first time he was in shotgun or in pistol, but either way, he came back to it. How often do we see that from Sark? We never see that. Usually when something doesn't work, he's like, man, that was really cool. It'll work next time. Can he just do it again so they can execute it better? And like, nope, we don't see it for 4 games. We're like, what happened to that really cool play? Now you saw it in the same game, in a big game, same guys and everything. And it probably shouldn't have worked this time, but Gunnar Helm went up and ran a Randy Moss style catch. So it probably it wasn't even open. It just
no. Gunnar Helm just went up there and made a grown man play.
Grown man play.
And just like, I'm bigger than y'all. I'll go up and get it.
Yeah, I'm bigger than y'all. It's just that simple. You know what I mean? And like I said, I love the growth from Sark. He's figuring, because remember my big complaint in the Washington game, in that bowl game, remember? I told you guys that pony package was working. Texas averaged over 10 yards per play running the pony package. Yet they ran 7 plays of it on the second drive of the game. They scored their first touchdown on it. They ran 7 plays of it in the first half, and then they ran 2 plays of it the rest of the game. Actually, they ran 7 plays of it on the second drive of the game, and they ran 2 plays of the rest of the game. I'm like, so Sark figured out it was getting 10 yards per play and decided 2 plays for the rest of the game on a pony package? Your feel of the game is off, man. Your feel of the game is off. Become an extremist. If it's working, do it. Say, guys, to hell with the game plan. Pony package is working. Run it down their damn throat with the pony package. He didn't do that. Remember I told you empty formation was working really well against Washington? Texas was 80% completion percentage, 18 yards per attempt, 50% explosive play rate, running empty formation versus Washington. I'm like, so why did we only run it for 6 plays? What? Excuse me? Excuse me? What? I think that Sark has grown. He's evolved. Now the Sark understands feel of the game is better. And when you got something that works, hammer it until they stop it. And if they don't stop it, then they'll choke on it. And who cares about the variety and moderation and balance? None of it matters if you go out there and you can dominate in any way. So that's my growth. I love that. I haven't seen that from Sark. Saw it in the Oklahoma game. All right, we come back. We got What the Facts, What the Stats right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for What the Facts, What the Stats here on the show. How about this one? The NFC North now is a combined 17-5. 77% win percentage. It's the first time in NFL history a division has had a 75% combined winning percentage through week 6 or a later week in the season. How about that? It's pretty impressive, actually. Who knew the NFC North was going to be? And that's why, man, I mean, with Minnesota doing what they're doing, it's impressive, but now even more impressive if they continue to do that when they got to get deep into division play, because it is a really, really tough division.
Yeah.
The Bucks. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying. Yeah, just saying. I was agreeing with you.
The Bucks had a weird. I don't know if you watched that game or even paid attention to it. The Bucks had a historic offensive performance this past weekend. Bucks win this past weekend, they became the 5th team in NFL history to total 300 plus passing yards and 275 or more rushing yards in a game. They joined Miami did it in week 3 of 2023. San Fran did it in week 5 of 2012. Dallas did it in week 1 of 1978. And Green Bay did it in week 9 of 1962. That Bucks offense, man, is rolling right now. They had 172 rushing yards in the fourth quarter. It was the most in a quarter in franchise history for them. Yeah, I mean, I would think so.
Yeah. I mean, they were down at half.
That's crazy.
They were down 27-24 at halftime. That's because I remember that's what I know is I saw they were down at half. I was like, oh, and then and all of a sudden you look back like, oh, they destroyed them in the second half.
That is crazy. I didn't realize they were down at half.
Yeah, it was Saints. All Saints 27 points were in the first half. They outscored them 27-0 in the second half.
Yeah, that's ugly. Yeah,
and 20-0 in the fourth quarter. Yeah.
So that defense has got some questions just got to answer. So especially if you were down, so I'm imagining, but they ran the ball too. Like they ran the ball in the fourth quarter too, which is crazy. I don't know. The Bucks playing some good football offensively. Here's another what the facts, what the stats. How about this one? Cowboys fans probably don't want to hear this, but man, Jared Goff, back-to-back weeks, 150 plus passer rating. He had a 153.8 passer rating versus the Cowboys, 155.8 passer rating in that previous game where he was perfect. Unbelievable. Man, Jared Goff right now on a heater, pretty much. I guess everybody can be on a heater against the Cowboys defense the way they played, but still very impressive showing by Jared Goff. How about this one? One more and we'll get out of here. The Broncos, they have the same amount of penalty yards as passing yards in the first half with Bo Nix as their quarterback. Since 2007, 566 QBs have thrown at least 100 passes in the first 6 games of their respective seasons. By first downs per pass attempt, Bo Nix's 2024 season is tied for 564th. And Deshaun Watson 2024 season is 566th in terms of first downs per pass attempt. Bo Nix is at 22%. 22.2%, and Deshaun Watson is at 22.1%. So I have the 566 QBs since 2007 to throw at least 100 passes in their first 6 games. First down for a pass attempt, Bo Nix and Deshaun Watson are at the bottom. That's crazy. That's I don't know whether that's more depressing for the Denver Broncos fans out there or more depressing for the Cleveland Browns fans, ones who paid all the money. I guess it's definitely for the Browns fans. It's got to be more depressing. You can always move on from Bo Nix. That's not a big deal. You can't just move on from Deshaun Watson. You kind of stuck with him for at least another season after this. I think they got to do another season just so they can absorb some of the money.
I mean, I'd still draft somebody this offseason. I'd still draft somebody and put
You
somebody
could.
else in there. Like I'd just stop playing him at a certain point.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, do you want to fake an injury and get out of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly not going to work. I mean, he's not that old Deshaun Watson is not coming back. I don't know if he's ever coming back. So it's a done deal. I don't know when they want to decide to move on. You're right. They could draft somebody if they like him next year. If they're going to be that bad, are they going to be bad enough to draft a quarterback that high?
I mean, there'll be somebody around.
Better than him is what you're saying. There'll be another option that's better than Deshaun Watson, right?
I mean, there'll be an option that
and cheaper.
Well, yeah, cheaper because you can't really sign another quarterback because you can't pay him that much. So I'm not saying you may draft a 2nd-round quarterback, a 3rd-round quarterback, take somebody somewhere, and that gives you an opportunity to put a different quarterback in the game than a guy that not only is not winning and playing really bad football, but the whole thing is we're going to take this guy with some shady moral character, but because he's good, no one's going to care.
Yeah, that doesn't work anymore.
It does not work when he's really bad.
Yeah, I agree. Doesn't work when he's really bad, and he's really bad, man. He's really bad. Yeah, I just like I said, it's so I don't know. It's just so strange that at one point, but the argument could have been made that he was a top 5 quarterback, or at least had that kind of potential. And now that's why guys, it's not always about the physical skill set. His physical skills did not deteriorate that much, but he did not cultivate his skill set. Being out of the game for that long, that's obviously had a huge effect on him. But mentally, he doesn't believe he's the same person and is seen in the same way that he once was. And that has affected his ability to play the quarterback position mentally, because he's not the same guy. He doesn't have the same swagger. He lost his swagger and therefore lost his ability to play quarterback. That's how much mental and how much the immeasurables and how much the intangibles play a role in that position, guys.
Yeah.
He's still the same, physically the same guy, but mentally, spiritually, guy's destroyed. And he can't play that position anymore because of it. Fascinating stuff. All right, we'll come back and we'll get into other fascinating stuff. Texas, Oklahoma. We'll talk about that matchup, of course. Texas putting an Old Testament-style butt whipping on the Sooners. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian. We go behind the burnt orange curtain. Also talk about some of the other big headlines from the college football weekend. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis, coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a smooth Monday edition of the Rodcast. That's when my man Patrick, my co-host and the Idealionaire on the show, he comes up with all the music themed days of the week. But a smooth Monday is intended to soothe the tortured soul of some of you sports fans out there, Cowboys fans, who may have had a tough weekend because their team didn't show up or team had a bad weekend, and also to make sure that you have a easy, smooth transition into the work week, which can be traumatic, especially when you're coming off a stress-free, fun-filled, relaxing weekend. Then you got to get into traffic and go to meetings and all of that adulting. We all know that can be very stressful. So in order to make it a smooth transition from the weekend to Monday, he makes it a smooth Monday, and we appreciate that. Patrick also comes up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is also posted at the Horn ATX on X. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll of the day. Who was the MVP for Texas against OU? The four we gave you: Quinn Ewers, Trey Wisner, Gunnar Helm, and Anthony Hill. Right now, Trey Wisner has the lead with 42%, Anthony Hill at 32%, 22% for Gunnar Helm, and 4% for Quinn Ewers. And a note that we have gotten several on the text line, and I believe one on X as well. A lot of people saying Silas Bolden deserves some love on there as well.
Yeah, that's true. I would say probably Silas Bolden might have should have been the choice, an option over Quinn. Just because I know quarterback, you always put him on there, but nobody thinks that Quinn. The storyline for Quinn is that he didn't play well, and he didn't play. He wasn't awful.
Yeah,
but the storyline is that he didn't play well. So I still think Trey Wisner's your guy. Think about what happens. I think eventually, I mean, you won 34, to 3. So I think yes, you would have pulled away at one point. The Silas Bolden play is the most iconic play of the game. It's the Stoney Clark play. It's that every game or OU game, has that kind of iconic play. He has the most iconic play in the game, but I don't know if that makes him the MVP of the game. I think Trey Wisner, because your Quinn was off, and that was a big storyline early, so you couldn't maximize all those weapons with any consistently on the outside. You couldn't do that, and I think because of that, you needed something else to spark the offense. And Trey Wisner was that spark. And he was, as I told you guys in my rant, his style and his skill set were perfectly compatible with the strategy that Texas was deploying in the running game. And Jaden Blue, I know they started with him, but Jaden Blue, it didn't work. They were fast flowing to football. They were meeting anytime Jaden Blue would get there, they'd meet him because they were running Jaden Blue on a lot of concepts. They were trying to pop to the perimeter, and they were pulling offensive linemen, try to get extra blockers in front of them and allocate resources, and that wasn't working with Oklahoma. They had been well versed and prepared how to deal with pulling offensive line for Texas, because they would basically meet the ball carrier where the offensive linemen were pulling. They were just fast flow. They usually some defenses try to shoot gaps behind the pulling offensive lineman. They did not do that. The linebackers went straight to the football, and that's when Texas figured out, all right, we got to zone block it up a little bit. That's how we're going to go, and we're going to throw in split zone and some split flow, and that with the patience of Trey Wisner and his vision, that's what really blew the game wide open, and it didn't last long. I said that really did. That lasted maybe 5 minutes of the second quarter, and then after that, you didn't pop anymore. You didn't pop any more big runs. Your runs were 4 or 5 yard runs, at the most. That's when you popped it, and that's because Sark found it. He saw it. Give him props. He was troubleshooting it, and then having whoever does the running back rotations having the presence to go, no, put Trey Wisner in there for these. It's he's the guy. And Jaden Blue had one of them. He had a 13-yarder that popped, but this was a Trey Wisner game because the concept that they found that it worked, the best and most successful concept in the running game versus Oklahoma was, I think, the concept that Trey Wisner was executing a little bit better at a higher level than Jaden Blue. So it's, to me, Trey Wisner. There's no question. Anthony Hill had a great game, but let's be honest, Texas defense was so dominant and has so many great players right now, they would have been able to still keep Oklahoma to 3 points without Anthony Hill. They would have. That's just Anthony Hill had an amazing game. He's an amazing player, but that defense was not necessarily sparked by just one guy. They had a lot of guys that were making plays. I mean, Derek Williams forced a fumble. He made some good plays. They didn't get any guys open downfield at all. So I know he was awesome, but I said it was down to those two guys, and I'll take Trey Wisner. And I think the public agrees, but they also got Anthony Hill, 32% of the vote too. All right, we'll talk more Texas, Oklahoma. We'll get into it here after we get into our Horn headlines. We'll dive into another offensive concept that I think worked really well for Texas that Sark really committed to. I'm not sure if it was in the game plan or if it just started working so well. He decided, offensively, this may be our best course of action. So I think it, in addition to the running game, we talked about what worked in the running game for Texas, what sparked what gave them juice in the running game, and what sparked some of their big plays there. I think he might have found something in the passing game versus Oklahoma and hoping versus Georgia, because I know Georgia actually was a bit vulnerable to this concept versus Alabama when Alabama beat them, that Texas could translate that into this week. So we'll do that when we come back. But first, let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB playoffs, the Dodgers took Game 1 of the NLCS in commanding fashion with a 9-0 win over the Mets. Mookie Betts helped with 3 RBIs, and the Dodgers pitching only allowed the Mets 3 hits and 3 walks in the game. Game 1 of the ALCS begins tonight with Alex Cobb getting the start for the Guardians against Carlos Rodon and the Yankees. In college football, Texas continued their dominant season with a 34-3 win over OU in the Red River rivalry. Quinn Ewers threw for a touchdown and ran for one, while Trey Wisner picked up 118 yards on the ground and a TD himself. Anthony Hill wrecked shop on the other side of the ball, leading Texas in tackles and adding 2 sacks and 3.5 tackles for loss. Elsewhere, Penn State needed overtime to knock off USC 33-30. Tennessee needed overtime as well to beat Florida 23-17. LSU also got an overtime win over Ole Miss 29-26, and Oregon just edged out Ohio State 32-31. Texas maintains their number 1 ranking, with Oregon taking number 2, followed by Penn State, Ohio State, and Georgia at number 5. And in the NFL, the Texans handled business in their matchup with the Patriots, winning 41-21, with a returning Joe Mixon picking up 102 yards on the ground and 2 total touchdowns. And the Cowboys never got out of the gates against the Lions, losing 47-9 in an embarrassing loss while dealing with a rash of injuries. Tonight, the Bills take on the Jets and new interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich on Monday Night Football. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for those Horn headlines. We appreciate it. And, of course, the biggest Horn headline that we're talking about, the Longhorns and their big win and maintaining their number 1 ranking in the country after putting just an Old Testament-style butt whipping on Oklahoma. There's a lot of ways we could go here. I think the biggest storyline for me was, the running game. You've been able to lean on the running game to win you a big game. And I wasn't sure when people would ask me, what's the big weakness of Texas? I was like, I don't really know if they have a weakness, but I think something that's concerning is, tied to the depth issues and the injuries that they've had at running back. I'm not sure if Texas has the ability to go win a big game leaning on their running game, and that's exactly what they did in this matchup versus Oklahoma. With Quinn having an off game, I've been talking about the early down pass rates for Texas, which so far this season with Quinn in there have been 60-65% for your early down pass rates. For Arch, that was one game, his first start, where Texas was below 60% early down pass rate. Well, this was the other game. So there were 2 so far this season where they've been below 60% early down pass rate, because I think they lean on their identity early. But I think Sark understood Quinn's a little bit off. We need to lean on the running game here. And then the running game early on wasn't working. All right. That's the one that really got concerning. Quinn was off, and you're like, okay, Quinn's off. But then let's get to the running game. But the running game didn't click early. It was clunky early on. And I think I said that was Sark troubleshooting, and then they found their way in the second quarter. And the thing about I always talk about the quintessential Sark run. You're gonna get a Sark run, right? I talk about like the Golden State Warriors. The run is coming. Early on in Sark's tenure here at Texas, it was always based on it was a heavily offensively influenced run. It was usually the offense doing big things, making big plays, scoring in 2 or 3 plays, and the defense would get you maybe a 3 and out or something like that, or maybe you'd get a return on special teams. It was starting to become more and more complementary, these runs, and not so heavily reliant on the offense. This is one of the first runs that I can remember. It started with the offense because, of course, the offense has the score, but it was the defense that ultimately, became the catalyst of the run with the back-to-back takeaways against Oklahoma late in that second quarter. And then that's when, in the last 2.5 minutes of that second quarter, you scored 14 points and pulled away from Oklahoma. And it was, like I said, we've seen it before, but like I said, this one looked different and was unique because I think it was the defense that led the run as opposed to the offense usually leading that run. And those are kind of the two elements that I took away. The defense now is so dominant that the defense actually can now spark and be the catalyst of the run. And now your running game in a big game against a good defense, by the way, like Oklahoma defense, a bunch of pushovers. They're not. That's also why Quinn was off, because Brent Venables plays good mind games with you, and they got some good players on that side of the ball. But you could tell the running game really found enough juice to be able to win that game for you and for you to be able to lean on it. But there was really no threat, even when it was still a fight with Oklahoma early in that game, because your defense was so dominant. Your defense did not allow them to breathe in any life to breathe into that Oklahoma offense. They smothered it almost at every possible moment when it looked like they may have had any sign of life. And I think that's why that defense right now, man, they're the best defense in the country. I haven't been tested, because they played some vertically challenged offenses. So I will admit that I haven't been tested, but I'm ready to start using the word elite with this defense. I mean, how can you not say they lead the country in total defense and scoring defense? I mean, I can't wait any longer. We're halfway through the season. I was just waiting on them to see a break in the dam and some, lapses and focus and coverage bust here or there, gap integrity issues. There's not really a lot of that stuff. I'm not saying they can't be exposed in some way, but guys, halfway through the season and they've allowed 3 touchdowns in 6 games. I haven't ever seen anything like it. As a matter of fact, the last time we had a Texas defense that have allowed fewer points, shout out to my man John Bianco, he threw this out there. The last time Texas allowed this few points, I should say, through 6 games was 1964. They allowed 30 points through the first 6 games in 1964. Texas has allowed 38, but only 3 touchdowns. I'm gonna call them elite. I know I'm gonna do it before the Georgia game.
I know. I'm waiting.
I don't know what that means going into the Georgia game, but I'll give them that. I'll give them that credit. They're still gonna be a top 10 defense after the Georgia game, unless they give up 50 points in the Georgia game.
Well, and I'll say that
I don't see happening.
Georgia's preparing for Texas like they're an elite defense.
Yes, they better.
They're preparing for them like you are going up against an elite defense. So they're getting treated like it, if nothing else. But I'm saying I'll wait, because I think if they go out and play well against Georgia, allow 1 touchdown, keep them relatively calm throughout the game, and just don't allow anything big over them, and get them off the field, get Texas opportunities, then that'll be the national conversation.
Yeah, there's a better chance of this becoming a defensive struggle than any type of offensive shootout. And maybe people would have said that about Bama and Georgia too, but I think because of Texas defense and because of Georgia's defense and what they're capable of, because I think their run defense is really good. So I think they'll be able to contain Texas run game. And if Quinn's off, or just say he's not on, he ain't got to be off, but just not on, and the best version of himself against Georgia, you might have to go win it with defense and field position and kind of go win an ugly game. Texas not had to win it. They have not played to the standard the last 2 weeks and still been able to blow teams out by 3 and 4 touchdowns. And so that's how good this team is. That's the ceiling of it. But I think Georgia's going to try to win ugly. I think that Georgia's going to try to make it ugly. See if Texas can win an ugly game. And that Oklahoma, that's why I like that they won the Oklahoma game with a run game and with defense. Because if you're going to win an ugly game, that usually means your offense ain't clicking. That means not every part of your offense is clicking, and you got to go win it ugly somehow. And offensively, it went pretty for Texas. And they still, so I'll give the offensive line. I think your MVPs are Trey Wisner, O-line, Anthony Hill. I think those are and then I those Silas Bowden, you can put him in the top 5 too. But the most important reasons and X factors to Texas winning, the emergence of Trey Wisner, who's in the last 2, you go look at these SEC games now. He's got 26 rush attempts, 206 yards, 7.9 yards per carry, and 10 forced missed tackles and a touchdown. He's been balling in these first 2 SEC matchups.
Coming off an injury.
And then the O-line. The O-line's worst performance was probably in those first couple of drives. They gave up the sack in the first couple of drives. There was some pressures early on Quinn, I guess. But then after that, they really kind of found their groove. And honestly, I think that was more on Quinn, not maneuvering in the pocket or navigating the pocket well enough. But the O-line, I thought, played really well against a good defensive front. So I'll go Trey Wisner, O-line, Anthony Hill is my MVPs. But no doubt the Silas Bowden moment is a iconic legacy moment. I mean, that was true a culture. It is a culture play, and it showed that he may be a culture warrior for you. And what are like I said, it really is remind you of that Jay Witt play, the Jordan Whittington play last year against TCU. Very reminiscent of that play where Jay Witt, it didn't really showcase his physical skills or his speed or his contested catchability or anything that has to do with his physical skill set or his measurables. It just showcased his football character and how great of a how great of a teammate he is to be able to go above and beyond. And Silas Bowden had that moment. And it like I said, it was an iconic moment. And I think for him, I'm glad he got it. We know he has not necessarily been naturally, organically fitting into the offense. It really hasn't happened for him. And for him to have the biggest moment of the game, like that was the biggest moment. I don't know about the best performance, but it was definitely the biggest moment of the game, because that could have went all types of wrong for Texas. And the momentum shift, it was still kind of going back and forth at the time. Nobody had monopolized the momentum yet. And that was the moment that started the swell of momentum for Texas. And then the snowball started. And that was the moment where Texas monopolized all the momentum. And so I will give him credit for starting that downslide of momentum for Oklahoma. It put them on the downside of it. And it just started really kind of a landslide of momentum.
Yeah.
And that was it. The game was over.
And I mean, a lot of coaches and will tell you things. If the ball doesn't bounce your way, you make the ball bounce your way. You get your own breaks. You being in the right place at the right time, putting extreme hustle in, that's how you get those big plays to happen. And that Silas Bowden is, you could say, oh man, well, that fumble, and it just so happened it bounced out the back of the end zone and the ball didn't bounce our way on that one. But because Silas Bowden stayed with the play, kept engaged in it, saw what happened, and then made the mad dash, was able to get there first, then dive on it, securing the ball, taking the hit when other guys are diving down, trying to get it around him, hold on to that ball and get the touchdown. Those are just huge plays in championship teams because you're making the ball bounce your way.
Yep. No, it is. You're right about that. And Texas in this game, there was some adversity, right? We just there's going to be adversity in this game. You just didn't know how it was going to present itself. And then you did get some adversity early just because everything wasn't clicking for Texas, and yet they found a way to make it happen. Gunnar Helm, I mean, what are the chances that Gunnar Helm been your leading receiver in your 2 biggest games of the year so far, halfway through the season? He was your leading receiver, and that was the drive. Really, the Gunnar Helm drive really kind of sparked it. Really, because he made those 2 big. There's DeAndre Moore made that great play. That really started it. That's what I think that was our first down of the game, if I'm not mistaken, a 26-yarder. And then right after that, Sark starts to. This is the beginning of the second quarter. That drive, I believe there was an Isaiah Bond. If I'm not mistaken, yes, an Isaiah Bond reception to start that drive. Yes, a 5-yarder. Matter of fact, this goes to something I want to bring up too. They went to empty formation to start that. They found empty formation to start working for him. He was 100% completion percentage on empty formation, average 10 yards per attempt, and they actually ran that play that got Ryan Wingo that forced the PI call, the pass interference. That was out of empty, if I'm not mistaken, too. So empty was great for him. It was actually one of the things that Sark found that was working for him in the passing game was running out of empty. And Oklahoma really just couldn't match up across the board, of course, with all the weapons. Cleaned up the looks for Quinn, too. They either had the blitz or they had the drop, and it just made things a little bit easier. When Brett Venables is able to drop guys from the second level and drop them all the way back, all right, to the deep half of the field or a deep third. Those are the types of funky mind games he's playing with Quinn. So your pre-snap never matches your post-snap, but you can force them to have to get to their alignment assignment when you stress them to the nth degree, like empty does, because it formationally stresses you. Everybody's got to get on their man, and you go, all right, we're in man, you're all in man, or okay, and that's why they'll motion to empty a lot of times, because then you know, like, oh, they're in zone, they're in man, they're in zone. And then it cleans up the read for you. But anyway, beginning of that drive, they started empty. So empty was working for you. And then they get the DeAndre Moore reception. So finally, Quinn makes a good play. That was Quinn's best play he had made up until that point. And that was the end. That was the start of the second quarter. And then you get the Trey Wisner runs that I've talked about, where Sark, after troubleshooting and dabbling, trying to figure out what run concept is going to work, because now it is it's dire that we get the run game going. It's critical because Quinn's off. So my initial game plan, I'm throwing a lot of it out the window right now because Quinn ain't having a good game, and I'm about to put the game in his hands when he's having an off game and risk this thing getting out of control. So I'm going to go with something more stable and safe. I'm going to go with the run game. And then the run game wasn't working initially. You go look at your first few runs you had Jaden Blue had a 2-yard run on your first drive. That was a 3-and-out. You had Jaden Blue had a 4-yard run on your second drive. That was it. And then that was a 3-and-out. Jaden Blue had a 3-yard loss on your third drive. And then that was a 3-and-out. So Quinn was off, running game was off, 3-and-outs. And then Quinn finally hits on a pass, but he's outside the pocket. He's extending the play. It's a great play by Quinn, great catch by DeAndre Moore. But then more importantly, on that same drive, that's when Sark figures out the split wide zone is going to work. And it's going to work with Trey Wisner. And it's going to work because that's what the Oklahoma linebackers are fast flowing to the football, over pursuing to the football, and their number one keys and reads are our guards and interior offensive linemen. Anytime we pull any of those guys, they're taking them right to the football, and they're not reading anything else. It was a great job by Brent Venables. So let's use it against them. Let's stop pulling the offensive linemen. 2 out of their first 3 run plays, they were pulling offensive linemen. They said, stop doing that. Let's zone block it, and let's go split wide zone. And then the patience of a Trey Wisner will make them pay for over pursuing in the split wide zone. And then they won't be able to read the same keys as when we have a pin and pull or a bug sweep or any counter schemes where we're pulling offensive linemen. And it worked. And it did. They busted those 2 runs. Those 2 runs later, but that was the beginning of Sark starting to tinker and figure some things out. And then that was the Gunnar Helm 21-yard play. If I'm not mistaken, looking at my notes here, that 21-yard play was out of empty. So he starts. This is the drive. This is the drive where Sark figured it out. It took him a quarter All right. It took him 3 and outs. And then he said, okay. He started out and empty. He had that 21-yard pass, catch and run for Gunnar Helm. That was at an empty formation. And then he figured out the split wide zone was going to work for him on that drive. And then he had his brilliant play design, the bootleg throwback to Gunnar Helm, the throwback screen, that's just chef's kiss. I mean, that's that's Sark's brilliant play design, and that's just him giving you a schematic advantage. And all you gotta do is execute because the scheme and the design did everything for you.
Yeah.
And then after that, you had a 3 and out. And that's because I don't think Sark had believed in what he saw with the run game yet. I got to go look and see what that, but I know that Jaden Blue run after that was not a split wide zone. And then they start coming back to it on that next touchdown drive. And that's when Sark gets those big runs. He pops it, the 36-yarder, then the 43-yarder, and Jaden Blue pops another one. And ultimately, that's when Texas separates. So we just saw Sark be very, very, he was dialed in. And that was a chess master moment. Because there's a lot he had to adjust to on the fly. Your quarterback was off. You got to adjust to that. You got to go to the running game. Running game's not working. Well, it's got to be something that can work in a running game. Let's troubleshoot it. Throw out there like 3 or 4 different run concepts. None of them working. Found the one that worked, and not only found that it worked, but was able to present it in different formations and able, in my opinion, to become an extremist, which is not in his nature naturally, and say, all right, you know what? This is the only thing that's working. Let's go. Till they stop it, let's just run.
And
he ran it.
And on that point, I think we saw, if you could look at those first two series, and that first series, third down, Sark makes a play call that's a touchdown if it's thrown right? So where he breaks up and there's just green grass ahead of him. So if Quinn puts that ball up high, that's a touchdown.
Yeah,
right?
Yes,
so
touchdown. Yes, touchdown.
Sark calls right play.
That's touchdown.
And then on the next one, I think Golden's open on that one. So he's calling the right plays, but that doesn't matter if the team's not executing them. So you can say, I can call plays where if everything's executed right, but whether it's the wind or whether it was Quinn, whether it was a combination of Quinn and the wind, he said, you know what? Let's change it up and try some of these different concepts and different things, and we'll get it going, and then that's a huge improvement for Sark, because he could have just looked at it and said, run that, keep doing that. I'm doing right. There's the play.
Yeah.
He was wide open. And he's got green grass in front of him, so I feel good. But to say the play didn't work, so I can't say my side worked and theirs didn't, because as the head coach, everything comes back to me. So if it doesn't work, it's my play call. Even if it's just execution, still my play call. So I got to find some guy and use the guys who are executing. And that's the same thing as putting in Trey Wisner and running him more than Jaden Blue. Who am I putting in? Who's executing the play properly?
Gunnar Helm's out there balling. He's like, I can depend on him.
So you can put everyone extraneous factors. The fact that he, even though his play calls technically were working, they didn't work. So he understood he had to keep changing with it, and that's a huge improvement, because
that's humility.
Yeah, because I mean, you can go back to other games where he keep trying to force it downfield or keep trying to force it and go, the guy's open, but the ball's not getting there. So stop it.
You've proven your point. You're brilliant, but you're still gonna lose. I don't know what but you're right.
Are you applying for another job?
You're right about that. That's exactly right. Because you're right. Those games were open. It was just that Quinn was off, and he recognized that and decided, you know what, I'll go win it another way. And I would say coaches are just problem solvers. Go solve the problem. And to hell with your style and your methodology and being stubborn about you have to win it a certain way. No, just go win it. And that's what you saw from Sark in that moment. Like, no, I'll go find a way to win it. All right, so we'll talk more about that strategy. Matter of fact, we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian and some of the players coming up next when we go behind the burnt orange curtain, talking about Texas, Oklahoma, all of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis here. Let me tell you about Dr. Record and his wonderful team. I owe them a huge debt of gratitude, first and foremost, because now my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better. That was not always the case. When I initially went to Dr. Record and his team just for a routine cleaning and checkup, they are so thorough. In fact, they found that I was on the verge of a disastrous situation. All my wisdom teeth growing in sideways. They were impacting my molars. Oh, trust me, it was an absolute nightmare. And I was actually getting a little concerned about how drastic of a situation I was dealing with, but there was no need for concern. I was in great hands with Dr. Eck and his team. They made sure I was knowledgeable and informed about the entire process. They made sure that I got everything scheduled, got the procedure scheduled, got everything done. I was done with the process. It took me about 2 days to recover. I was back at work and never felt better. And now my dental health and hygiene have never been better, thanks to Dr. Eck and his team. Now, hopefully for you, it's not as serious as having all of your wisdom teeth extracted. That's pretty drastic. But even if it is something really serious, trust me, I can tell you first and foremost that you're in great hands with Dr. Eck and his team. I can testify to that personally. So hopefully for you, it's not that serious. But if it is, you're great. General dentistry, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Eck and his team are all about right now. They also have the ability to put you, to give you a brand new smile in just 1 day. Permanently secure at your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they complete your permanent smile, and you're going to smile again and eat freely without pain or discomfort. We're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, don't get depressed and don't freak out. It's okay. Just call Dr. Record today to learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a brand new smile in just 1 day. Sounds too good to be true. It's not. It's just Dr. You. So give them a call. It's a complimentary consultation. You got nothing to lose, but so much to gain. 512-345-3166. He understands a confident smile could truly change your life and wants to change your life for the better. And right now, it's the perfect time to do it. We're approaching the end of the year, and you want to use those benefits before you lose those benefits. And right now, it's the perfect time for you to give a shout to my man, Dr. Record, and he can help you out with any of your dental needs. 512-345-3166, or visit drrecord.com, drueckert.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas-Oklahoma conversation. Texas putting just a thumping, Old Testament style butt whipping on the Sooners, and after us, the Longhorns were in a good mood as expected. And Sark even brought a corn dog to the post game podium, so he was feeling real good. He was actually munching on it in between questions with the media, so the coach was feeling good. So we got some audio here from Coach, and he's sitting up on the podium with some of the players, so they're answering questions together. And the first one is Quinn and Sark when they were asked about the slow start from Quinn and how that affected him and how he battled through. Here's Sark and Quinn on that.
Yeah, it's definitely good to be back. Grew up not too far from here, so it's always nice getting back in the Dallas air. You can definitely feel it, and it's definitely nice. But yeah, it was a rough start, but I think overall we did a good job of when adversity struck, we overcame it, and it's 10% what happens to you, 90% of how you overcome it or what you do. So. Overall, I think I need to play better, but I think we did a good job overcoming some adversity early.
Yeah, I think just for us offensively, we knew coming in, it was like we had to figure out what they were going to do. We felt like we had a pretty good plan to go attack it. We were a little bit off, and we get sacked early. We're behind the chains a little bit, and we have, I think, the ball on the 10 to start one series, and we lose 4 yards on first down. And what happens is, and against good defenses, when you don't win on first down and you get behind the chains, then you end up at third longs. And third longs are just tougher to convert. As the game went on, we started winning more on first down, and that gave us more 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 4s, and your conversion rate starts to go up. You can extend drives and stay on the field. So, but I think the running game helped us quite a bit today, especially in that second quarter. We found a niche there running the ball, which then I think opened some things up in the passing game.
He's right about that. And it's, we've kind of detailed it here on the show today. I think Sark did a great job of really, like I said, troubleshooting that Oklahoma defense and finding out what would work against them in the running game. Speaking of that running game, Sark, one of the biggest plays of the game came on the ground, but also could have been the turning point in the game. Trey Wisner's big 36-yard run with him having fumbled at the end of that run. The Oklahoma Sooner, I should say, the Sooner defender did a great job actually knocking the ball out. Then the ball ends up being recovered in the end zone by Silas Bowden. That really sparked the landslide of the momentum of Texas monopolizing that momentum. Here's Sark and Trey Wisner talking about Silas Bowden and what may have been the most iconic legacy play of the game for him.
Yeah, one thing for Silas I want to touch on, then I'll let Trey go from there. He transferred from Oregon State where he was kind of the go-to guy, and he's assumed a little bit of a different role here, and that transition was tough for him. And Coach Jackson, myself, just continued to push him to stay positive, keep working. He probably had his best week of practice this week that he's had since the regular season began, and it showed in his play. He was playing faster, his effort was better, he was courageous on some punt returns that early in the game to keep field position. It was a total effort play for him to make that play in the end zone. And then he finally got the big punt return. But I think it was all a byproduct of kind of his, just his focus on staying positive, continuing to work. And then the result was, he was very impactful in the game today. I don't know, Trey, if you want to touch on anything else.
Yes, like Coach said, that's just who Silas is. He practiced hard every day. His effort is A+ every day. So for him to come in and correct one of my mistakes, I commend him for that.
Yeah, there you go. Man, I love Trey Wisner's maturity, taking ownership, taking accountability there after having a hell of a game there too. Another thing that, or at least another factor in Texas' dominance over Oklahoma was the defense. So they were great in all phases, or good in all phases. Obviously, the passing game left a lot to be desired, but the Texas defense has been one of the best defenses in the country, and now officially they're the number one scoring and number one total defense. Here's Sark when he was asked about, how his defense performed versus Oklahoma.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I mean, they were getting stuck with some really tough field position, getting short fields. Ball was on our end of the field, and they kept putting out fires. And, our defense has assumed a real kind of swagger about them and the way they play and a real confidence about them. And, we do sudden change drill once a week. And so they know what to expect when that stuff comes, and nobody panics. They just go take the field and they keep playing. And what I love about our defense, it's not about one or two guys. There's 11 guys out there that play really well together. We rotate a lot of players, and everybody has confidence in the next guy that's going in. And I think that allows us to stay fresh and continue to play well against the run and the pass.
Yeah, and it's been that way all season, right? It's not just Oklahoma. They shut down Oklahoma, but I mean, right now this defense is only giving up 3 touchdowns in 6 games. John Bianco stats said they've allowed 38 points in the first 6 games, fewest for a Texas defense since 1964. Here's Sark talking about how his defense has performed over the length of this entire season.
There's a lot of credit that can go around to some of our veteran players, Michael Taft and Anthony Hill, Aaron Sorrell and Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. And then, Jade Barron. Then there's this influx of some new faces, right? Whether it's a Trey Moore, Andrew Makuba, Colin Simmons, some of the new faces getting Jalen Gilbo back. But we're a veteran defense when you really look at us. And these guys have played a lot of football, and they may not have all been the stars a year ago, but they've grown into playing really good football individually. But I think more importantly, they're playing really good football collectively. The communication on the defensive side of the ball right now is better than we've ever had it in 4 years. And I think that's a byproduct of Michael in the back end and Anthony in the front of just communicating, getting everybody on the same page, and then playing really well together. Again, I don't think defensively, like, we rely on one guy to go get 3 sacks to play good. It's everybody playing well together, getting the call. We're tackling really well. We're not missing tackles and giving up explosive plays, and we're staying on top in the back end. We're just not letting balls get thrown over our head. And so we can make it hard on teams to have to drive it the length of the field.
Yeah, they're playing really well on defense. A big part of that is Anthony Hill, who had one of the best games we've ever seen a defender have for Texas in the Texas-Oklahoma game. And he and a lot of other guys, Barron Sorrell, I think part of it, Michael Taft, they brought a Baker Mayfield jersey onto the field and at midfield, and I don't know. They desecrated the jersey while also planting a flag in the middle of the field. Yeah, we'll get into what we think, why they chose a Baker Mayfield jersey. Actually, Baker Mayfield responded to it. But here is Anthony Hill on the Baker Mayfield jersey. Disrespect at the end of the game.
I just feel like it was a right thing for me to do. I seen all the stuff they posted last year, so I feel like it was right for me to get a little touch of something on them. So I just had to post me a little something to make the team and make us feel good.
All right. So, yeah, of course, Texas-Oklahoma has national implications, and nationally it was a big storyline. Got to Baker Mayfield, who was celebrating in his postgame a win by his Bucks in thrilling fashion, but then was being asked about Texas' win over his Oklahoma Sooners. Here's what Baker Mayfield had to say.
Paid attention to what happened in the Oklahoma game yesterday, but they planted your jersey midfield and stuck a flag through that. What's up with you catching some strays there?
It's just a kid from Austin, Texas that went to Oklahoma and won his last 2 Red River games and being rent-free in their heads for almost a decade now. So, yeah.
I love how petty this thing is getting. This is great. And I gotta thank some of the Sooners too, because last year they did it with the T-shirt and Texas fears Oklahoma and all that kind of thing. Love how petty it's getting back and forth. And so we've done some research because we're trying to figure out, like, why did Baker Mayfield, out of all, he is one of the GOATs in Oklahoma football, but why does he get the stray? And basically the belief, at least the theory, the working theory, is that this is actually has roots in a local high school rivalry, right, Patrick?
Yes, because
that's where its roots of this thing really are.
So someone pointed out that Baker had talked trash about Sam Ehlinger at a point
for years,
and there's a Baker Sam Ehlinger feud, and then that goes into Westlake Lake Travis, and who's one of the stars of that Texas defense right now, Michael Taft, who's friends with Sam Ehlinger, family friends, and then also played at Westlake. So I could believe that Michael Taft may have been able to provide a BakerMayfield jersey to the team or to do. I could believe that there could be some hate feud about that.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
I'm with you. The evidence suggests that this might be a Michael Taft inspired. We're going to take a shot at Lake Travis.
it makes the most sense.
It does.
And it does that all tracks and aligns because Baker and Sam never played against each other, right?
I don't
think so. But Baker would always talk trash on Sam when he was playing in the Texas-Oklahoma game. And Sam, I believe, played in more Texas-Oklahoma games than any other Texas quarterback, right? Because he played in 2 in one season. Now it may be different. Remember, he played in a Big 12 title game against them, in addition to playing against him in the season. So they got a special hatred for Sam Ehlinger up there too. But man, the Baker Mayfield thing, I think the theory is around the money and it tracks that. That's probably at its core, a Westlake Lake Travis thing, because that's why Baker Mayfield, even in the league, would be taking shots at Sam Ehlinger. We're like, what? Why are you worried about Sam Ehlinger? Well, that's why it's personal. Not only Texas OU, but deeper Westlake Lake Travis. Man, yeah, I like it. Good stuff. All right, we come back. We'll get into Off the Record on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, Texas gets to play Georgia this upcoming weekend, and Georgia's a top 5 team now, so we're a top 5 matchup. It's going to be the premier game this upcoming weekend, and it's going to be in Austin. So it's going to be a traffic Mageddon coming up here because you'll have F1 in town too. It's going to be wild. But this story didn't get a lot of attention, and I don't even know what was the reason for it was, but in their win, the Georgia's win over Mississippi State, did you see Kirby Smart
Bump the
shove
player?
a player?
Yeah, shove the player. Yeah, I saw that. I saw the clip. I don't know how. I mean, he's got to get fined for it, right, or something.
I don't know. It was aggressive though. I mean, it was, and it wasn't. You would have thought like maybe the player was like running onto the sideline and like he ran into him, or it wasn't that. It was not that at all. He kind of ran up to him.
Like the player basically comes off onto the sideline, kind of goes in, but doesn't even like knock over any. It didn't look like he did anything to anybody.
He wasn't talking trash. It didn't seem like either.
But
I
even
don't know.
talking
Maybe
trash,
said something.
there's absolutely nothing that justifies a head coach running across running 10 yards to run up and push a player.
And he physically pushes him. He does. I mean, and the ref's right there, by the way.
Yeah.
The ref is I would say a foot from it. Like he almost pushes him into the ref. He literally almost pushes him into the ref at the time.
It felt like watching it that Kirby was trying to get to the ref to yell at the ref.
And
the player was in the way and he pushed him out of the way. But on that same sense, you're like, how do you not, even if you're yelling at the ref, not get, hey, I probably shouldn't go push this guy in the other jersey out of the way? Because he pushes him.
He pushes you clearly. He pushes him, like I said, he almost pushes him into the ref. Because the ref is right there. Then another ref the ref he's yelling at comes over to him.
Yeah.
Because I think he's really at the ref that's on the field. The other ref, though, that's right there on the side, he almost pushes him into him, but it just and nobody says anything about it. Just kind of moves on. It was such a crazy thing. I was like, man,
it's
Smart is out there. Wow. That was a very weird thing. Usually I thought that would have been a bigger story, but maybe he didn't see him at all. Like literally, maybe he just thought. But who else are you shoving out there? Then you shoved the person
exactly, and that's the thing is, I think he saw him. It looked like he was trying to yell at the ref and just didn't care and pushed another player. But you shouldn't be doing that. Like even if you're saying, "Well, I didn't mean to push him," you're like, "But you did.
You pushed.
You meant to push somebody to get to this ref to yell about a call."
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, because they did ask him about it. Following the game, Smart both said he doesn't remember the play, but also remembers that he was trying to get the attention of his defensive coordinator, Glenn Schumann, is what he said. He said, I think the play I was going after Shu, I was trying to get Schumann's attention. He said, we were trying to change personnel, trying to get Shu's attention, but no, don't remember it, he says.
Yeah, I think they should show him the video and let him make an apology today.
Oh, I'm sure he's seen it by now, and I'm sure he probably already has. There's nothing that says Kirby Smart's not he's probably a straight up dude. So I'm pretty sure by this point he's like,
that's another.
I definitely could see you saying I don't, because you could be caught up in the moment, very emotional, wild, and just go. I get that. No, and I'm sure after seeing it, I bet he's probably sent that young man an apology or sent Mississippi State coaches.
Because that's another one of those things. That's what also made it seem weird. Is there's certain coaches that you might see that and go, oh yeah, he pushed that player. He's pissed about something and he thought I'd get away with it. Kirby's not that guy. So that's why it seemed even more out of character, because you're like, what is Kirby doing this for?
Yes, and exactly. And I was trying to figure out if the young man had done something during the game.
Yeah,
there was no reports that it was a previous interaction or anything like that. It was just Kirby getting
and that's the other deal is he doesn't push him and then yell at the kid.
No, it's almost like the kid's not even there. He just pushes him. Yeah, and then he's yelling at somebody on the field, and he says it was his defensive coordinator. So it wasn't even a ref. I thought it was a ref.
It looks like a ref.
Because the ref was right there yelling. But there were two refs that were there, and nobody acknowledged the shove on the player.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just that he didn't see it. Not a big deal. All right, there you go. We'll come back. We'll get into NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We got to talk Texans. We'll talk Texans when we come back. Yes, we'll review the Cowboys and that just meltdown that we saw by the Dallas Cowboys. We'll also get into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets from around the league. Raj Rant will be about the Texas-Oklahoma game. I saw growth in Sark, maybe going from a good coach to a great coach to a championship level coach, a true chess master. And we'll talk about that coming up in Raj Rant. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Smooth Soul Monday edition of the Rodcast. Thanks to my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis. That's when he plays jams intended to soothe the tortured soul of sports fans who may have had a tough weekend because their team didn't show up, Cowboys fans. So it'll help out you tortured sports fans out there, but also if you're just having a tough time getting used to Mondays, and maybe you got a case of the Mondays coming off a stress-free, fun-filled, relaxing weekend, now having to deal with all the adulting of a Monday, the traffic and the meetings. And my man Patrick wants to make that a smooth, easy transition for you. That's the purpose of a Smooth Soul Monday. We also appreciate Patrick coming up with the topics for the big fat poll of the day that is posted right now on X at the Horn ATX. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll of the day. Who was the MVP for Texas against OU? We put up Quinn, Trey Wisner, Gunnar Helm, and Anthony Hill. Right now, Trey Wisner, 45% of the vote. Anthony Hill with 31%, 20% for Gunnar Helm, 4% for Quinn Ewers, and a bunch of comments saying that we should have thrown Silas Bolden up on there as well.
Yeah, it was there. And I don't think Silas Bolden would be, in my opinion, in the top two here. But yeah, you can make the argument because Quinn's 4% that's them telling you, no, Quinn was no. He's not even considered in this conversation, and Silas Bolden would be.
No, and I like the fact that I like the way you put it. It's his Stoney Clark moment. It's that moment that when people think of the game, they'll think of Silas running down that end zone, and it'll be a thing you put in highlight packages from here on out. Is and the fumble, and he grabs it a touchdown. So I think he had that moment that he'll kind of forever live in Texas OU lore now, because of a really big play in the game. But he did that, and he had a good return in the game. But other than that, not a huge factor in it. So I didn't put him on there. But yes, I agree. Moment-wise, he may have had the moment of the game.
Yep, man, those happen too. I mean, those are important. Sometimes, that guy who is, a part of that moment, or who captures that moment is also, the best player in the MVP of the game. It's like a Jordan Shipley, right? In 2008.
Yeah.
The moment and the best. But honestly, he had a couple of those. He had the punt return, but then he has the reception for the touchdown, but then they have my man Quan Cosby with the block on the same play.
Yeah.
That was also one of the moments too. So, you're doing good. You got a great legendary game when you got multiple moments like that in the same contest. But yeah, I'm with you. I think he had that moment, and that moment will outlast. We won't know. Nobody will know about Anthony Hill's performance in a decade. They won't. You guys won't remember it. Y'all don't remember Derek Johnson's great game in the Texas Oklahoma game. Some of y'all do, most y'all don't. And in 15 years we won't remember it. That play could potentially make the highlight reel in 20 years. The Silas Bolden play.
Oh, I mean, it'll be on there because it is OU forcing a fumble and then Texas game. I feel like both teams have something in that they like.
Yes, because it kind of epitomizes that game, and the momentum shifts up it all in one play. You're like, oh man, they're running down. Oh, he got knocked out. Oh, they recovered it. Like, whoa, like that's the game in a nutshell, like that.
Yeah,
and that was really what swung the momentum. That's what started the landslide in Texas, monopolized the momentum. Was that moment, and then from then on, it was just like boom, boom, and it all happened so quickly. And then you looked up, and the game was over. I mean, it really was. It was like a heavyweight fight that kind of lasted until like the third round. In the third round, things just got out of hand. It's like one of those Tyson fights back in the day. It's like, oh, they made it to the second round, and then Tyson just knocks him out. That's kind of what it reminded me of. All right, there you go. That's the topic for the big fat poll today. We'll talk Texans here. We'll talk Cowboys here. We'll get back to Longhorn discussion when we go behind the burn orange curtain. We got to talk about the Texans, whose offense, that looks like a totally different offense when you got a healthy Joe Mixon there and a Dameon Pierce. Where's that Dameon Pierce been? I haven't seen him in a couple of years. That's rookie Dameon Pierce right there. Like a rookie Dameon Pierce.
We heard during camp.
That is true.
We heard during camp. Now you hear that about every single player that's ever been out of camp. But we heard that he was playing better. We heard that he was finding it better, that he, or during the offseason started to figure out how to run in that scheme a little bit better, which he should have been working on all offseason. So we heard all that, and he just hasn't been healthy. He hasn't been out there.
Yeah. You're right.
So-
So we thought it was all speculation.
Exactly.
Turns out, that might be on to something, man. No, you're
Yeah.
right. That's a good point. We thought it was all speculation, but that running game looked good. And that if that is how the offense is supposed to look, if that is how it's going to look going forward, they're going to build on that. But they got to stay healthy. So knock on wood at the running back position.
And unfortunately,
If
you
they
don't get
do,
to play the
yeah.
Patriots every week. But
now that is yes, the Patriots' rush defense was above average though. It was
Yeah, but
above it wasn't a great elite one.
no,
it
but
was
you were
above
getting better
average.
field position. You were getting the ball more. You weren't. You didn't have
Yeah.
to. You didn't have to throw because you weren't going down. So you were able
That's
to.
true.
You were able to get the ball more and do more things with it. Joe Mixon, I think for sure though. We've seen him now. Basically, the 2 games he has played, he's looked really good in.
Yeah, what did he have that first? Was it 159 or something like that? What
Yeah,
did he have that first
159.
week?
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah, that first week, and Texas had I think Texans had 213 total in that week 1 contest on the ground, and this week they had 192. So you're averaging close to 200 yards
That's crazy.
a game when Joe Mixon's healthy in the running game. And then Dameon Pierce, I mean, over 9 yards a carry. They both of them basically broke big runs in the game. That's what elevated their averages. But Joe Mixon still 13 for 102. Dameon Pierce 8 for 76. You get that, and then you can have Ungwale as that on your modern day fullback, your Kyle Juszczyk of that offense, however they want to frame it. That to me means they can beat. And once Nico Collins gets back healthy, they can be dangerous. And how about this? I was worried about it, and we discussed it. If after this game, Tank Dell wasn't a true focal point in the offense, and we didn't see some of the signs and some of the flashes from last year, we didn't see that, then we'd be concerned. Well, we saw more than that. We saw plenty of flashes and a substance from Tank Dell in that matchup. So I think going forward now, maybe this helps Tank Dell break out of his shell. Now, when Nico comes back, he'll still be relegated to be the number 3 guy.
Yeah.
But maybe now this helps him, assert himself now as that number 3 guy. Maybe they should rotate him in more with the top 2 receivers, depending on the formation or personnel group.
He did lead the team in targets, so that's If you
Well,
have a guy, got him. It was
yeah.
nice to see him, be featured in that and be able to step up to the plate when he was featured in that. And I think that, you're going to be able to use him a little bit differently as the season goes on. There still was one guy I'm a little bit worried about not having a good season so far. Dalton Schultz hasn't been there.
Yeah, it's a little off. Yeah,
he just hasn't
agree
looked
with that.
like he's. There's too many plays for Dalton Schultz where he feels like he's a step behind where the ball is supposed to be, and he doesn't really care about it. It never looks like he seems like he's really going for some of these passes on third down.
I mean, I agree. He's not what he was last year. Last year he was like CJ's. He was like one of CJ's go-to targets in a crisis moment, and that has not really happened. I'm with you. He had 8 targets too.
That's what I'm saying.
4 receptions, but he had 8 targets. He had the second most targets.
There was a lot of plays where he didn't really get separation, so CJ put the ball further out in front of him, and he would stick out one hand. And dude, you're not making one-handed catches.
Yeah, you ain't that
go
guy.
to the ground, get the ball, but you gotta if you go lean forward, you can get this. You're gonna hit the ground, but you can get it, and you can pick up a first down. But he just stick his hand out, tap the ball down, then run off the field. Man,
but they're trying to get it to him though. So
they can because the plays are designed because they know they're paying him to be that guy. So you need him to just kind of, I don't know if he's maybe dealing with something where he's just not 100% right now or what it is, but it doesn't feel like he's getting what he needs to get done out there. And
to your point, how about this fantasy points per game, which is that's a cumulative thing. So there's a lot of different stuff in there. But he's getting almost 27% target, 26% team target percentage, which is second behind Tank Dell in this game. Tank Dell's fantasy points 18.7, Dalton Schultz 6.7. Stephon Diggs got third. His team target percentage 22.6%, and his fantasy points are 19. Gives you 19 fantasy points. Yeah. So to your point about the receivers, it's something's off there because he's getting more target share and more target rate or as much as any of these receivers here, but he's not giving you the fantasy production, which means he's not giving you overall production for that target share. But Yeah, you may be right about that. And I just think they're still trying to figure. I don't know if anybody thought Nico Collins would start the way he did, and then from then on, there has been a bit of a struggle for everybody to find their role in the passing game, with him just being such a dominant presence after that. So I think everybody in this, I think this actually may be a blessing in disguise, him being out for a little bit to get healthy. That maybe not. We just saw Tank Dell. This is the first game where Tank Dell looked like Tank Dell from last year. He had 9 targets, 7 receptions, 57 yards, had that touchdown. And then I think Stephon Diggs doesn't need him, and he'll find his. He's a vet. He finds it. But for Dalton Schultz, maybe one of these games coming up is that Dalton Schultz game, where he finally starts to look like he did last season. So I'm with you on that too.
And Diggs also finds himself in the end zone a lot. He's really good in the red zone.
Savvy.
And that's one of those pieces that even if you're not getting a ton of targets, if you're getting touchdowns, usually a little bit happier.
Mm-hmm. You're right. I mean, he's just a savvy vet, because he was going up against Gonzalez, actually, Christian Gonzalez, who's a really good corner, a really fantastic corner for the Patriots. He went up against him, I want to say, on maybe 5 of his targets. He had 7 targets, 5 of those Christian Gonzalez was lined up against him, but he got his touchdown against him, got almost, I think 4 of those receptions for almost 40 yards. So I'm not worried about Diggs. If he needs to be number 1, the best thing about him is if he needs to be number 1, he can be that. If you need him to be number 2, he can be that. He can be anything you need him to be. Target, you need to be a red zone guy, he can be your red zone guy. That's the beauty of having Diggs around. Also, another thing that I really like that I saw in that game for the Texans, the penalties are they're starting to decrease. Now it's the Patriots, so I consider the opponent. But remember when they were getting double-digit penalties in, I think they got 3 straight games where they had double-digit penalties. And the last two games, they've had 11 penalties combined, but they had 12 versus the Jags. They had 11 versus the Vikings. They had 12 versus the Bears. So D'Amico said he would get it under control.
He's getting there because last week they had the first half that was completely clean, and then all the penalties were in the second half. This one, I think, only 4 penalties in the whole game, so a much cleaner game across the board. So they're getting better, but it's going to be a year-long thing to continue to push. We cannot get penalties, because as much as you can be thrilled that they took care of business against the Patriots, and this is the first team they've played that they actually covered and pulled away and did what they needed to do in the game. It's the Patriots, so you can't put your chest out too big. You got to be like, all right, that's good. We know we can do that. Now let's go beat some good teams.
I will say this, though. I actually liked what I saw from Drake May. How about this? The Patriots had 4 passing plays of 20-plus yards versus the Texans. Texans defense is not a bad defense. One of the better defenses in the league. They had only 6 passing plays of 20-plus yards in the first 5 weeks of the season. I think Drake May, I know he threw some picks and they had some turnovers in that game too. I thought Drake May showed a little something, considering there's no real skill talent around him. The offensive line right now is in shambles. It's one of the worst O-lines in football too. And with bad, subpar weapons around him, I thought he looked pretty good. Had a couple of picks, but they had some 3 passing touchdowns, 7.4 yards per attempt, something like that. Yeah, also led him in rushing, I think, too. I think he had 38 yards scrambling. I thought they might have found something in Drake May. To me, that's a moral victory if you're the Patriots, because maybe it's time. Maybe it's the Drake May era, officially.
It could be. I was impressed that he was able to shake things off pretty easily for his first start and everything, and throw a pick, just come back out the next and play again, and take a sack, get up, go play again. And so a lot of guys, especially young guys, maybe aren't there. We saw Spencer Rattler get his first start for the Saints.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Looked pretty good. We talked earlier about how that Buccaneers team put up 20 in the fourth quarter. Part of that was when he needed to have the comeback, he started throwing picks. And when it unwound quickly for him in that fourth quarter. So, that's one where you sit there and you go, if Drake May, it never really unwound for him. He didn't, he made some mistakes like a rookie's going to do. It's a decent defense you're going against with the Texans. Made some mistakes, but he just felt like he just kept coming back in and was just happy to be there. When he was telling the players before the game that he was so excited to be playing and really took it, really appreciated it. Thanked Jacoby for all his help. And, you saw all that stuff, and that made you feel like he understands what situation he's in. and he doesn't necessarily isn't going out there thinking, well, now I'm in Super Bowl time. Was disrespected. Should have been starting week 1. It feels like he understands the situation a little bit better. Go out there, play the best you can, and just keep trying to get better. And I think he will continue to improve because it didn't look like he at any point got really flustered out there.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's a great way. Yeah, because he never unwound. I'm glad you put it like that because I refer to it like a downward spiral. Guys start spiraling. It's like, oh man, he's spiraling now. It's like quicksand. He's just sinking. Yeah, you never saw that from him. He had great poise for a young quarterback. So I think Dre may I don't know, no pun intended there, be something special for the Patriots. We'll see. We got to see a little bit more sample size, but I thought he conducted himself really well considering the situation. All right, that's some Texans talk. We'll come back and get to some Cowboy stuff, but first let's get our Horn headlines. Hadn't hit those. We've been talking NFL, but first let's get updated, educated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines. And we'll come back and talk about the absolute dumpster fire we witnessed down there in D-Town with the Cowboys.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB playoffs, the Dodgers took Game 1 of the NLCS in commanding fashion with a 9-0 win over the Mets. Mookie Betts helped with 3 RBIs, and the Dodgers pitching only allowed the Mets 3 hits and 3 walks in the game. Game 1 of the ALCS begins tonight with Alex Cobb getting the start for the Guardians against Carlos Rodon and the Yankees. In college football, Texas continued their dominant season with a 34-3 win over OU in the Red River rivalry. Quinn Ewers threw for a touchdown and ran one in, while Trey Wisner picked up 118 yards on the ground and a TD himself. Anthony Hill wrecked shop on the other side of the ball, leading Texas in tackles and adding 2 sacks and 3.5 tackles for loss. Elsewhere, Penn State needed overtime to knock off USC 33-30. Tennessee needed overtime as well to beat Florida 23-17. LSU got an overtime win over Ole Miss 29-26, and Oregon just edged out Ohio State 32-31. Texas maintains their number 1 ranking with Oregon taking number 2, followed by Penn State, Ohio State, and Georgia at number 5. And in the NFL, the Texans handled business in their matchup with the Patriots, winning 41-21, with a returning Joe Mixon picking up 102 yards on the ground and 2 total touchdowns. And the Cowboys never got out of the gates against the Lions, losing 47-9 in an embarrassing loss while dealing with a rash of injuries. Tonight, the Bills take on the Jets and new interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich on Monday Night Football. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Let's talk about the Cowboys. The worst home loss for Jerry Jones and the Cowboys since he has been owner of that franchise. It was his birthday weekend, too, so it added a little insult to injury on top of that, and it was ugly. There was really no other word for it, UGLY. I mean, that was just a mollywhopping that the Detroit Lions put on the Cowboys. And now you start looking at the last 4 home games for the Cowboys have played. I mean, first of all, they're 0-3 at home this year. And going back to last season, going back to that last playoff game, man, the Cowboys halftime scores, because these games have basically been over at half. I know they came back in that Ravens game and made it interesting, but still lost. Down by 27-6 at half to the Lions this past weekend. They were down 21-6 to the Ravens at halftime. They were down 35-16 to the Saints at halftime. And then going back to that Packers playoff game, they were down 27-7 at halftime at home. Like that's crazy. Like, I don't know. The Cowboys, I guess, are just a bad home team right now. And that's just weird to fathom.
I think it goes to there's something in the water in that Cowboys facility right now, because what did we talk about on Thursday, Friday last week? That we were looking at this Cowboys team a little differently because guys were stepping up on the defense that weren't the normal guys. And it felt like this team was playing as a team for the first time we'd seen in a while. And everyone seemed to be carrying up, stepping up and doing their part. And as soon as they get home, it's all about everybody by themselves again. No one played as a team. Nobody cared. No one watched each other's backs. The O-line didn't help out Dak. There's receivers didn't have anybody step up. No one stepped up. I mean, the starters didn't play well, and then no one behind them decided to come in and try and be a hero either. And just everything kind of fell apart because it felt like they got home and it just, we Well, we don't need to be that like that. We had to stick together on the road. We don't got to stick together here. I got my crew here. You got your crew. We're all going to go hang out with our families. We'll go hang out with their own people. Jerry told me I was the best. Jerry told me I was the best. Jerry told me I was the best. It just something seems off that they go home and they play the worst football they can play. And then they go on the road and maybe get a little bit more centralized and maybe a little bit more team atmosphere because they're all together and they feel, maybe you get more of that us against the world mentality when you're on the road and teams and people are booing you and you get, I don't know what it is, but there's something when they get home and they just don't care. Like they don't, it feels like they're waiting for their dinner reservations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's, do you remember, it was the Astros, right? A couple of years ago that was
we're terrible
like that.
Yeah.
Right. They were terrible at home, but they were awesome on the road.
Yeah.
And my theory was that because they had become the villains, they had gotten used to being the villains.
Yeah.
And when embracing that villainy and that role, they were that on the road. They were villains and they had gotten used to everybody hating them because of the cheating scandal. So they're like, all right, we're hated. As you said. And then when they're at home, they weren't villains because they're loved at home. And it was hard for them to switch the mindset.
Yeah.
And because because that was just a theory. I said, I don't know if that was true. I don't, what's the theory here as to why the Cowboys, they've allowed
there was plenty of Lions fans at that game. It wasn't like it was a home field advantage.
That is true too. No, you're right about. How about this? So sad. The Cowboys have allowed 167 points in their last 4 home games, including regular season and playoffs. That is the third most over a 4-game span at home in NFL history. Like, what the hell is happening at home with the Cowboys? Wait, there's got to be something to this, man. There's a sports psychologist that's got to study this. There's something going on here because it's not just losing at home. You're getting like mollywop, like you're getting just old biblical style butt whippings at home. I know you came back and made the Ravens one close, but for the most part, these are just shellackings. Like, what?
Yeah,
is the issue?
Let's put it this way: Cowboys fans I know and friends of mine that are Cowboys fans, and I watched more of that game than they did. Because I remember I was texting people and they go, oh, kind of stop paying attention. And that's what the Cowboys home games have been. Kind of stop paying attention. It feels like the Cowboys did. It feels like they kind of stopped paying attention,
No, the Cowboys, they didn't quit. They didn't show up. So
no.
You just can't say they quit because they just didn't show up at all.
No, and like in the Ravens game, they showed up late.
They showed up late.
But they showed up, but it doesn't feel like they're pumped up and ready to go at the beginning of these games. And it's the biggest is we literally both of us sat here last week and said, maybe this is a turning point that this team, the injuries is going to solidify them as a unit. And Mike McCarthy, I gave him credit for getting this team and showing resilience. Yeah. And what happened to that team?
You know what I've said about the Cowboys, though? Oftentimes, it's not about how they handle adversity. Sometimes they do pretty good with that. It's how they handle success that usually hurts the Cowboys. And that's because I'm with you. That was a really impressive win over the Steelers. We were talking about all the excuses they had to lose, a weather delay, the injuries. You had your Marshawn Neely went down early in that game. Zach Martin left that game at one point. I mean, you were just a mash unit. No Michael Parsons, no DeMarcus Lawrence, no Brandon Cooks. I mean, they're just excuse after excuse.
No Caleb Carson, no Deron Bland.
Oh man, and the Cowboys they played like a team who really didn't. There were no excuses made, but they played like a team that wanted to, basically as a group and as a unit, that they wanted to go out there and prove that they didn't necessarily need everything going right, and they didn't need all the players to go out there and win a game on the road to Pittsburgh. That's hard to do because we know Mike Tomlin he's great at winning those types of one-score games. That was on the road, ugly win, and yet they found a way to win it. And I think maybe they started to feel themselves a little bit. Maybe they started to celebrate a little bit because of that win. It was an impressive one, but man, that showing versus Detroit was just, like I said, there was a no-show.
But you've nailed it though. But it's not just a show; it's this at home.
At home,
it is a consistent problem of, and you can say maybe it's just good teams. Maybe they play good teams like a pile of crap, and that's a pretty worrying problem too. But I mean, there's no excuse for you to not show up at all in that game, to completely bend over and just say, No, you take what you want. We don't care. None of us have any pride left. We won we beat the Steelers last week. We got our win. It just doesn't make sense. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense because the team is better than that. The team played much better than it last week. Everything looked better than it last week. And yet somehow, at the end of the day, they had this performance. And now you go into a bye week. And it's going to be the question, what do you do? Because if you sit still, if you don't do anything in this bye week, if Jerry Jones does not make a move, now I'm not saying you have to fire a coach. I'm not saying you have to make any dramatic, giant trade a first, second round pick to try and get a top player. Not saying you have to do any of that. But if they don't make any moves, if their one move is activating Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin Cook, yeah.
If that's your one move, Jerry Jones does not care about winning anything this year. He is the opposite of all in. He is not even remotely in. And he's done. He's fine. He's moved on. He's ready for 2025. He's already looking at draft because that's the one thing he does well.
I'm with you because if you look at the schedule for the Cowboys that's left, there is probably 2 more guaranteed wins left on the schedule. With the way they're playing now, the way they look, they'll look much better after the bye week and guys get healthy. But even before guys, went down with injuries, the Cowboys were still struggling. But you look at it, the Giants, that's a win because the Cowboys are better than the Giants even right now. And then you got at the Panthers, that's another win. But then at San Fran, at Atlanta, versus Philly, versus Houston, at Washington, versus Cincinnati, versus Tampa Bay. We just talked about how Tampa Bay is playing really well. Washington right now is leading that division. Philly, I'm not sure, but I still think Philly's right now is better than the Cowboys. Philly's not a Super Bowl contender, but neither are the Cowboys at this point. So I don't know if I had the Cowboys at 11 wins, and right now I don't know if they look like an 11-win team to me. And right now they're 500, but I don't know if they right now look like a 12-win team. Definitely not. But this team is regressing. This organization is starting to regress a little bit, and I wonder when they get healthy, are they still going to have the same issues, the glaring deficiencies at running back and at D tackle? As you said, Patrick, they got the bye week to figure something out. And if I was them, I'd make a trade. I'd probably go with, oh man, what's the thing? What do you trade for first? I probably would try now to go after a D tackle first. Yeah, because that's been the biggest glaring issue for you all season long. There's a chance Rico Dowdle could be more of a presence for you in the running game. You do have a Dalvin Cook. I don't think that's actually going to add any juice to the running game, but at least it's another element you could explore that could help you improve the running game. Rico Dowdle I think Rico Dowdle still averaged 5 yards a carry. I know it was still a sad performance from the team overall, but I still think he had a 12-yard run and he averaged 5 yards a carry. It's not
But you need another running back.
You need another presence.
And
but
that's
I would
the
go
deal.
D tackle first, probably.
I'd say I do both, and I'm going to be upset if they don't do both. I don't think they're going to do either, but I do both because at the end of the day, you can say Dalvin Cook. If Dalvin Cook is not good enough to make the roster yet, if he hasn't shown you enough that he's better than Zeke Elliott, who was mediocre to start the season and has now progressed to complete suckage. Then if he can't take his spot, then either he's got some pictures of Jerry Jones or he's not playing well in practice.
I don't think it's a good. I agree with you.
And side note,
we don't know.
You can sign players off a practice squad. Nobody else in the country signed Dalvin Cook either.
Nope.
So he's available to every single team in football right now. No one's picked him up either. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be your answer to get him in there. At this point, I think the problem is big enough that, you can't look at the Titanic and go, guys, let's just put some duct tape on it.
No, but I think when Brandon Cooks gets healthy,
I agree.
That'll improve the passing game overall. And all you need is you need somebody that can break a play for you. Rico Dollar showed he can break a couple of runs for you. It's
Yeah.
not going to be consistent, but he can break a couple of runs. But you need another guy in there that can break a run for you. And if you add that, I do think the offense can be, like I said, a high level offense. They're gonna be a pass heavy offense anyway.
They are,
That's the
but
reality
yeah,
of it.
if you can put in a running back that when they basically put 3 guys on the line of scrimmage and can still
little light
stop your
boxes.
run,
Yeah,
then you
That's
can
what
run
they're
the
gonna
ball
do.
for 12 yards consistently until they put somebody back in there. Like, just look at what Joe Mixon means to that Texans offense.
Yeah, changes everything.
It's
does.
a massive difference in there when
So
you
the-
put Joe Mixon in.
No, the biggest problem with the Cowboys, issue is that we saw this coming too.
Yes.
The fact that the front office did not see this glaring deficiency on the horizon, even after the Tony Pollard injury a couple of years ago, that is the scariest part, is that they didn't foreshadow. They didn't see this. This was not being foreshadowed within the front office of the Cowboys, and it should have been, because we've been talking about it for 2 years. Like, man, the Cowboys better figure out somebody running back. They probably last 2 drafts, everybody's like, man, they should draft a running back in the middle rounds or higher in the rounds, because they need a running back, that's going to be able to lead the running game, or at least be the focal point of the running game. And they just ignored it. And now
and
it's
then
coming back to bite them.
They came out and told everybody that they really, really love Jonathan Brooks. They told everybody, and then waited
they
for him
did.
to, and they waited for him to. Well, maybe he'll fall to us. Well, if you love him, go get him.
Go get him. Or go get any running back. Who cares? Go get you a higher level running back you think can contribute right away. The Cowboys never did it, and they just got beat by a team that has prioritized getting high level running
They drafted
backs.
a running back in the
Gibbs and
first
David
round.
Beckham.
Everybody said that's crazy, and they look pretty good right now.
They look pretty damn good right now. I know. And I'm not saying draft one in the first round, but you can get them in the first
Yes.
4 rounds.
Or I don't know. This is gonna sound crazy, Jerry. I know you don't like spending your money, but there's a thing they started a few years ago called free agency, and you can actually go out and pick up good players. Like how do the Ravens look this year? The Ravens look good.
Oh yeah.
Is there a running
They look
back who's
pretty
run
good.
for a touchdown in every single game so far this season?
I want to say, aren't he's like one of the lead? He's like one of the leading rushers in the league, isn't he?
Yeah, right. He's first time in several years that a running back has scored in the first 6 games of the season.
It's like leading the league in
Yeah,
rushing or something.
yeah. I know. He said he wanted to go to Dallas, so.
Yeah, he's leading the league in rushing. He's leading the league in rushing by damn near 100 yards. Actually.
But you don't have the money.
He's
Come
got
on now.
704 rushing yards already. And how about that San Fran? Jordan Mason's got 609. I guess he's gonna be out for about that shoulder injury. But damn, he's already got 704.
How much money do you think Jerry Jones spent on his birthday?
Man,
Jerry Jones probably spent $100,000 on renting out a room and getting catering and everything else for his birthday. Couldn't spend $6 million on DeMar getting Derrick Henry in there.
Yeah, but
Come
Derrick
on
Henry
now.
said they didn't even reach out to him.
That's what I'm saying.
They had no interest at all.
That
and he's
is
like, so
insanity.
he probably would have given you a hometown discount, but you don't even know because you never even went over to inquire about it. Lamar Jackson is also top 10 in rushing. They got 2 top 10 rushers.
Yeah, probably should have gone for it.
Yeah, the Cowboys are just. I feel bad for Cowboys fans right now because I don't right now, unless they make a move. I'm with Patrick. I don't see this thing getting that much better. You'll get healthier, but I still see regression this year if you don't make a move.
No, I feel bad because I'm a Texans fan and it makes me upset.
No, I thought we got to talk about it. So I don't want to see the Cowboys implode. I have to talk about that. All right, we come back. We'll get into the Texas-Oklahoma game. We'll talk about the Longhorns, the adjustments that Sark made. I saw growth from Sark in a lot of areas in this game. We'll talk about it all on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. I want to talk a little bit about the Texas-Oklahoma game. One of the things I've been critical of when it comes to Sark's growth as a coach, and he's grown tremendously since he's been here at Texas, is that there are some times where he seeks moderation and balance with his offense, and he needs to be more of an extremist in certain areas. And this year, I've told you guys I recognize growth because I said in the offseason, you need to be stubborn about the passing game and emphasize the passing game and lead with the passing game. That's your strength. That's where all your weapons are. The deepest quarterback room, best quarterback room in the country, top 5 best wide receiver rooms in the country. Look at what Gunnar Helm's doing. The offensive line is loaded. You should let the run game complement the passing game, especially with all the depth issues and injuries at running back. And he has done that, right? You've only had 2 games where your early down pass rate is below 60%. And that was Arch's first start and this past game against Oklahoma. And there's a reason for that. We'll talk about it. But he has started to, usually he's trying to get balance in terms of the pass run ratio. But this season, he has leaned into just being a pass heavy team. You've been 60, 65, sometimes close to 70% early down pass rate. And, that's just one example of it. So I see growth there. And I was critical after the bowl game last season because, there were some concepts that were working against Washington, and yet he would use them sparingly. Right. And he knew they were working. I mean, he's the guy calling the plays, and he would see them working and still decide, you know what, I'm going to be moderate in my usage and deployment of these concepts. And my criticism was always, if it's working, just keep doing it until they stop it. All right. If they don't want to stop it or adjust to it, don't do them a favor and stop running it. Shove it down their throat till they choke on it, or make them adjust to it. That's the game. Right? And my criticism was always that Sark must not like leftovers, because there could be something that's really good one night and he doesn't want to have it the next night. He wants something new. He wants some variety. And sometimes that seeking that variety and that diversity, I think because he's so creative and so innovative offensively, he has so many concepts in his bag that he wants to use them all. And when he finds one that's working, he'll oftentimes say, I'll come back to it at another time, or I'll do something else, right? That's similar, that can exploit them in the same way. And I'm like, no, run the same thing over again. You can present it differently, but run the same concept over with them until they stop it. And in the Washington game, in that bowl game, it was the 2 back sets, right? They were averaging 10 yards per play on pony package in that game versus Washington. And on the second drive of the game, they ran it 7 plays, scored their first touchdown of the game, only ran it 2 plays for the rest of the game. And I thought to myself, he knows it's working. It's in the script, and yet decided, I won't use it, but only 2 times for the rest of the game. I'm like, no, why the moderation? Why the variety? Just run the pony package. At least be gratuitous about it until they stop it. He did the same thing about empty formation against Washington in 2023. You were completing 80% of your passes, over 18 yards per attempt in that game, 50% explosive play rate on empty formation passes versus Washington, yet didn't run it a lot. And I thought to myself, he knows it's working, run more of it. This game against Oklahoma, right? First of all, his feel of the game was fantastic. Great feel of the game for Sark because he knew early on Quinn's off. I'm not gonna force it. My quarterback's not on. It's pretty obvious, whether it's rust, whether it's coming out the injury. I don't know. He's just having an off game, and that's okay because there are other ways for us to win. So early on, he curtailed the early down pass rate. You're at close to 50% early down pass rate in this game. And that's Sark deciding, all right, you know what? I'm not going to overburden Quinn. Let's go win it with the run game. And then early on, the run game wasn't working, right? Your first 3 drives of the game, you got 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And your run concepts that you were throwing out there in the run game, you had a 2-yard gain for Jaden Blue on the first one, and that was a 3 and out. You had a 4-yard gain on the second drive, and then that ended up being a 3 and out. You had a 3-yard loss on a running back run on the third drive, and that ended up being a 3 and out. And right around that 4th drive, that's when Sark started figuring things out. He was troubleshooting. He started tinkering with the run game. He knew his passing game wasn't going to be the focal point, and it wasn't necessarily going to be the difference in this matchup. He knew it would be the running game, but he didn't know what run concepts were going to work. Now, he was running a lot of concepts early on where they were pulling offensive linemen. I think 2 out of the first 3 concepts when they were running the football on those 3-and-out drives, they pulled offensive linemen, and Oklahoma was fast flowing to the football, and the O-linemen that were pulling were essentially giving away the play. And you can tell one of the things that Venables had him prepped on was, hey, you see an offensive lineman pull, you go. Beeline, fast flow to the football. And they were actually over pursuing to the football. They weren't even waiting to read the rest of the play. They said offensive lineman go, takes them right to the football, and they were beating the Texas ball carrier there. And Sark figured out right around that 4th drive of the game, okay, you know what? We're not pulling offensive linemen anymore. We're not going to do that as much. Let's go with some of our zone blocking concepts. And they started running the split flow outside zone, split flow wide zone, split wide zone is what they call it. And those were your runs that ended up popping. And not only did he figure out the split wide zone because of their over pursuit and the way they were reading the play, the split wide zone would work, which is kind of one of the bread and butter plays for Sark in Texas anyway in the run game. But the patience and the vision of Trey Wisner would be more compatible with that strategy than a Jaden Blue would be, because he's more patient and he's got better vision, and you got to wait for those runs to pop. And yeah, you may be able to get 4 yards out of it if you just hit it real hard. But if you're patient and you wait on the blocks to align, you can hit it for a 43-yarder or a 36-yarder like Trey Wisner did. And you keep in mind, think that you had 4 runs in that entire game that were over 10 yards. One was the ending around by Ryan Wingo. So that leaves 3 running back runs that were over 10 yards. Guys, they were all within 4 plays of one another. That is not a coincidence. That is Sark becoming an extremist and saying, it's working. Now we're going to run it down their throat until they stop it. So there are 30s. You end up with the 36-yarder that ended up, of course, fumbling and ended up being a fumble recovery touchdown by Silas Bowden. If you take that play, that 36-yarder by Trey Wisner, and then you take the next offensive play, which is a 43-yard touchdown run by Trey Wisner, and then there's on the next drive, there is an incomplete pass. That was the double pass by Matthew Golden. Terrible double pass, by the way. They should have known, because on the second one, he didn't have his gloves on, by the way. They should have known. Then Jaden Blue is a 13-yard run. Those are your 3 running back runs over 10 yards, and they all come within 4 plays, 4 offensive plays of Texas. It's on 3 different drives, but they were within 4 offensive plays. And that was Sark becoming an extremist in that moment and saying, they can't stop our split wide zone. We're going to run it. They ran one or split wide zone RPO. That was the 36-yarder. They ran the split wide zone from different formations with 11 personnel, but it was still the same run concept. And that was Sark becoming an extremist and saying, all right, you know what? They can't stop it. I'm not going to sprinkle it in later, because later on, Oklahoma adjusted to it. They found an adjustment to it in the second half. So you didn't bust those big runs, but while they were still a little bit, ignorant to that vulnerability, Sark hit it, and you had to hit it right then. You had to be gratuitous. You had to be an extremist about it. And that's what Sark did. And that's what won you the game. In a sense, him troubleshooting and finding the run concept that worked, but also being able to have the talent that is compatible with that, which is Trey Wisner, and then being an extremist about it and not deciding, you know what, we're going to sprinkle that in later on. No, to hell with that. If they don't make the adjustment, run it until they stop it. And if they don't stop it, you can just ram it down their throat. He also did this with the double pass. The double pass didn't work initially. He came back to it in the game. How many times have we seen a great Sark play and win? Sark should run that play again in the game. I would run it again right now. Just because it didn't work doesn't mean it wasn't open. Doesn't mean you couldn't at one point execute a little bit better. Now, was it open then? Nope, because Garner Helm was covered by 3 guys and went up and did a Randy Moss style catch. So that was different too. But my point is that Sark came back to it. Sark the extremist is starting to emerge. Instead of Sark the moderate and the well-balanced Sark, he doesn't care about that anymore. All he cares about is what works, and let's do it. And let's run more of it. And you know what else he found? He found empty formation worked like that too. They were 100% completion percentage on empty formation. It was the only passing concept that consistently worked for him. And on that 4th drive I'm talking about, where he figured out troubleshooting that the Trey Wisner split wide zone would work really well, That's also the same drive they figured out empty formation would work. That was the Gunnar Helm drive. He had a 21-yard reception, catch and run out of empty formation, and they started out that drive. First play to Bond was empty formation. He figured it out. It took him a quarter, but he figured out the two best concepts that would work in the passing game and the run game. That's what won you the game. Sark the extremists. All right, we come back. We'll wrap it up, put it in the oven, and we'll play Who Said That right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to, of course, it is a Smooth Soul Monday, of course. Before we get to Who Said That. Smooth Soul Monday, of course, my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, comes up with all our musically-themed days of the week. The purpose of a Smooth Soul Monday is to ease you into the work week, to make it a smooth transition from the relaxing, fun-filled, stress-free weekend to the very stressful work week. And in order to help you with that transition, he wants to make it as smooth as possible. Thus, the purpose of a Smooth Soul Monday. He also comes up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day. You can go check that out at the Horn ATX on X. He simply wants to know who was the MVP for Texas against Oklahoma. And 44% of you who decided to vote in this poll decided it was Trey Wiseman. I agree with you, by the way. Another 34% said it was Anthony Hill who was the MVP. All right, time to play Who Said That. That's when we play pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world. And based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that. It was D'Amico Ryan talking about his linebacker. It's amazing that he basically said, "Yep, he didn't bench him, but I threatened to bench him if he didn't get his you know what together." And he was talking about the game not 2 weeks ago against the Bills, actually. So not the most recent game, but still, D'Amico Ryan showing that he's a player's coach, but every now and then the player's coach got to put your foot down. Let them know, like, hey,
expect some more out of you than that.
Yes, the accountability. For Aziz Al-Shir, who's basically the leader of that defense in a lot of ways too. All right, good stuff there, Patrick. Appreciate you as always. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll be talking about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. And until tomorrow, same time, same channel. Hook 'em and peace.